pretty confident the Dogs should take care of Brisbane at Marvel.
Yeah, I think they get it done.
But Doggies will get this done.
I think Bulldogs win this, but I've been wrong many times.
Yeah, no, I think Bulldogs win as well.
And a terrific win for the Brisbane Lions against a side that was very much in form. 43 points.
He just uses one piece. It's him. He's the man every time the ball comes to Joe. Can I have a shot? Is the first thought. And
Morris has got Danaher top of the square. Unselfishly little Loman. Goal Brisbane.
We bloody won. So hit that bloody theme music. So before we get into the episode, I just do want to apologise to the listeners. There are some slight audio issues in some parts of this episode. I had a few technical problems at my end, and I fixed it as best as I could, but there is a little bit of interference and crackling during one section of the pod. So I do apologise. Unfortunately, it's a bit too hard to re-record some of that section, so we've done our best to bring you the best quality recording that we can, considering the circumstances, and we should have the problem fixed by the next episode that comes out. So thank you for your patience if you make it through to the end. I love your work. Thank you. All right, listeners, welcome back to winning. We did it again, and we did it against a so-called informed team apparently, and premiership contender apparently, because they beat a couple of sides that are out of the 8 in the last couple of weeks. And as always, joining me, it's my co-host and the sex symbol of the show allegedly. More about that a bit later. Al McGovern. Welcome, Al.
Ash, how are we?
Yeah, pretty good. Having a day off for the King's birthday. And
Victorians.
I think a few other states do it as well. But I got a bit of a whack as well, because apparently I don't ask you how you're going every single episode. It's generally every second episode, and the poor guy. And I'm not going to name names, but a female Brisbane Lions fan and listener of the show, someone I know personally, is like, poor sexy Al, you don't even care about what he does during the week. And I'm like, I do. He tells me off air. I forget to ask him for a second time sometimes.
We do. I mean, we sometimes have chats before the recording starts for 10 minutes or so. So there's a bit of a debrief there. We do chat, and like we've said before as well, like, this isn't the only time we chat. We text each other all through the week, and even during games and whatnot as well. So, no, we do chat. You do ask me how we're going. We do know a fair bit about each other's personal lives. So, but thanks for the listener out there for watching out for me. So that's good. I appreciate that.
I don't even know if she knows what you look like, but it's a bit like me with that lady from that podcast I promoted a couple of weeks ago. When I said I'm pretty sure she's hot, but I don't know what she looks like.
The voice can go a long way sometimes.
Yeah. And she sort of humour in that. So speaking of that, so my mate James Brayshaw was on Triple M. He's going down the slide today. He probably already has. I have no idea what time they're doing it, because as people will find out as this episode goes along, I have not watched any other games of football all weekend and have no intention of. Not even the King's birthday game today. Jimmy's on Triple M and he's talking away about going down the slide and whatever. And And then he starts going into a bit of a ramble about how in awe he was of Sally Pearson and Meg Lanning, two of our greatest female sports people of all time.
Yeah, agreed.
Nonetheless, and I am a massive fan of Meg Lanning. Every time she speaks, you have to listen. She's just really, really, really good to listen to. She knows everything about the game she plays.
Yep.
I'm sure everybody knows that she's a cricketer by now. And yeah, when I think of Sally Pearson, obviously, a great athlete as well. I don't know a lot about her, but I know what she competes in. I know that she's a great athlete. But Jim Bob, his first thoughts were, well, I went up to Meg Lanning and Sally Pearson and said, geez, you two are looking fine. You don't need to wear makeup. You're just so beautiful and hot already. I'm like, come on, Jim.
Geez, a bit out of touch, isn't he?
It's not 1975 anymore, mate. I mean, if it was, I wouldn't have been listening because, one, Triple M didn't exist. It was an AM station called something else. Two, I was born that year. But, I mean, come on, mate. Like, let's just treat women like equals. Let's treat them like they deserve to be treated, not as objects.
Yeah, I always find like it's, with the commentators, they kind of feel a bit awkward when they're forced to interact with, female players or colleagues in the media and stuff like that. It always feels like they look a bit awkward, like they're trying not to say something inappropriate, and then sometimes they end up doing it anyway.
I find that the footballers who have recently retired in, say, the last 2 to 5 years, in general, not Jordan Lewis though. I've got something I want to say about Jordan Lewis in a second.
Me too, actually.
Yeah, like all the others, Job and Daisy Thomas, Schofield, even probably Pav. But Pav's sort of one of those blokes anyway. He's just nice to everyone, but even though he's a bit flat, but
yeah,
they interact so much better with the women. And Lee Montagna as well. They talk about the women footballers or just women in general so much better than the old boomers.
Yeah.
But that's another thing. So that's something that's come up this week as well with Mac Andrew at the Gold Coast Suns.
Yeah, I heard there was something that happened. I didn't actually hear the specifics.
So I'm going to try and bring up, I got a screenshot of a post about it. Just bear with me, listeners. Technology is great until I have to use it.
Yep.
Yeah, we need like Homer twiddling his thumbs on the roof with Lisa, pumping into a jug next to him. Yeah, so the Raw actually put this post up, and I'm not sure where
Your mates.
Yeah, my best buddies. I'll give them a tick this time. They've hit on a good topic, and they've done well with it. Like, they've written, that stereotype commentators have when describing non-white footballers. Mac Andrew isn't a fan of it either, and then they've done like a heap of clapping emojis. And so Mac Andrew, and I will say a lot of commentators or podcasters or whatever are really positive about how good this kid's going to be.
Yeah, he was a top 10 pick, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he is still a kid. I think he's only 20. So he's still really young. But he's come out and he said, the commentary around myself when I play is, oh, Mac is just really athletic. But I'm more than that. I'm really a smart football player. I can read the game pretty well. I've always been a pretty skillful player. And he's hit on a point because every time a Sudanese or any sort of Nigerian or South Sudanese player is playing football, all they talk about is, oh, yeah, he's so athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And as Mac Andrews said, they're more than that.
That's true. But do you think it comes from a place of they want to pump them up, but they're scared they're kind of walking on eggshells to make sure that they don't say something that could be taken the wrong way and then they get in trouble?
Well, Chain Goof GF from the Hawks, how many times, this could be a weird stat in itself and it would break the stats record. Gary Lyon, CJ, I can't pronounce his name properly. He says that in commentary every single time, mate. It's not that hard. Chain Goof GF. I mean, come on. Like, I'm a boy who grew up in the country as white can be, but I can still pronounce it. but and I've been guilty of this one when I've coached Indigenous players of using the term Indigenous magic. And like the Indigenous footballers are more than just magic. They work their asses off to be as good as they can be, like everyone else does.
Yeah, of course.
But anyway, so Jordan Lewis, when you're watching on KO or Fox Footy, if he's on air with Kath Loughnan, have a look at her body language towards him.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that.
That's all I'm going to say. And especially if he's on with Brad Johnson and Kath Loughnan.
Yeah.
Her body language towards Brad Johnson is a bit of, I'm pretty sure she's got a crush, but just have a look at how she sits and motions towards Jordan Lewis.
Yeah.
So anyway, you want to give Geordie a whack, and I'm sure. So just for the listeners, we're going to at some point have a bit of a break, and Elle's going to go have a coffee or something, and I'm going to have a chat with Deb. And I already know that we're going to talk about Jordan Lewis because she's put it in her notes and let me know.
Oh, interesting. Hopefully we don't overlap. But
look, if you overlap, you overlap. That's how it is, mate. That's the way we do things here.
Oh, it was basically just the thing I wanted to raise was it's kind of a mini media watch, I guess. So you were at the game of the weekend. Obviously, it was at Marvel Stadium in Victoria. You were there. Yep. I couldn't make it, so I was watching KO. And before game and during all of the breaks, they cut back to, they have their own, I would say commentary team, but they don't actually commentate the game because they use Channel 7's feed.
Yeah, they just do a bit of a special comments and a bit of an analysis.
Yeah, so there was one after the game where they were talking about the Lions' run home, and Jordan Lewis basically hinted at the fact that Gold Coast games are essentially home games for Brisbane, which is interesting for him to say that, considering, there's so much talk about, Geelong, how Melbourne-based teams hate going to Geelong, and Geelong hates going to Melbourne, all that sort of stuff because it's such a travel. The distance between Geelong and Melbourne and the distance between Gold Coast and Brisbane is about the same. It's about just over an hour if there's no traffic, hour and a half at tops.
Yep.
So I don't know why he can get away with saying that Gold Coast, us playing at, what do they even call it these days? Heritage Bank Stadium. They change the name of it every year.
I don't know.
That's essentially a home game for us. And he was saying that how many home games we had because, that's counted as a home game. That was a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's a narrative that people pulled during the year of the COVID hubs, the first year of it. Brisbane had the whole thing on a platter. They played nearly every game at home. And I was like, well, we played games at Metricon Stadium. We played a game at Cairns. Oh, yeah, well, they still count. They're still in Brisbane. No.
Oh, yeah, Cairns. Yeah, that 2-day drive. That's just down the road.
It's close. It's actually close. Brisbane's closer to Melbourne than it is to Cairns. But
mate, I drove. So my dad lives up in Cairns. I drove with my two kids up to go and see him September last year, and that was a 2-day, 12-hour a day, sometimes 16-hour a day drive. It's a long way. It is not just down the road.
Yeah, well, that's like So I grew up in the Pilbara for much of my childhood. I lived in South Hedland and Port Hedland for a fair while. And my school got to provide the players for a Waffle Little League game for East Perth, which is how I ended up becoming a Royals fan.
Yep.
In about year 3 or 4. And I brought that up with someone recently, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you just jumped on a bus, didn't you?" Like, no, we had to fly. It's it's like 890 something kilometers away. It's actually, and then I'm pretty sure it's actually more than that. But I think when you fly, it's about 890, but when you drive, it's over 1,000. But a lot of people don't realize how big this country of ours is, especially. Yeah. In the 2 big or the 3 bigger states, because Northern Territory, and that's like, people talking about, Darwin having a team is saying, well, everyone will go from Alice Springs every week when there's a home game, and It's a
I doubt it.
It's a 15-hour drive. They're closer to the Adelaide Oval than they are to TIO Stadium in Darwin.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. It's such a spread out population in Northern Territory.
I guess we better talk about football, unless you were about to say something else.
Well, I've actually got another one about Jordan Lewis as well.
Okay.
So I'd mentioned this to you in the game. So I think it was about the halfway mark of the game, maybe 3/4 time, or maybe even just slightly after the game, but it was towards the end of the game. Gary Lyon and Jordan Lewis were talking to each other, and obviously we know Lachie Neale had a pretty fantastic game.
Yeah.
So Gary Lyon asked, how good Lachie Neale is, and tried to compare him to a few other players. And Jordan Lewis said that Lachie Neale is not in the same league as Patrick Cripps or Marcus Bontempelli.
Yeah, well, Marcus Bontempelli, a lot of both our fans and their own fans, were yelling out a lot of things to him during the game the other night about how he's never won a Brownlow.
Yeah, he's been he's run up a few times, I think, or at least top 3, I think, pretty close a few times. And look, he probably does deserve one. But to say that Lachie Neale's not quite in the same echelon as Patrick Cripps and Marcus Bontempelli is quite ridiculous when you look at their CVs, as you would say.
Yeah, and it's not even like a Victorian bias thing in that instance. It's like certain guys just don't register with the media because the media is so tunnel visioned. And they're so conditioned by their masters back at their studio head office that these are the players you have to pump up. These are the players you have to talk about. You got to use their nickname, or just their first name. And in my opinion, the only time you should use a player's first name and not any other part of their name is Lee Matthews, because he's Lee. Yeah. Anyone else?
Sorry, Lee Montagna. It's not quite. You're not quite on that level.
I suppose we could just call him Joey, but then again, there's other Joes around now. So
true.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we've rambled on for long enough. Old mate Lex is going to be smiling away because he loves hearing us talk about stuff that's not football related.
That's what we do here. We ramble.
We do. So before we get into the footy, one last thing. So a shout out to James, who's one of our listeners, who I met at the Fan Fest on Saturday at the State Hockey and Netball Centre, not the State Hockey and Everything Else Centre, as I called it recently. James is a pretty avid listener, obviously does listen because he recognised my voice out in public, which is pretty scary. Probably more.
Yeah, that must be a really cool but weird sensation to get recognised.
Yeah, considering when I hear my own voice on playback, I think, my God, how can anyone listen to that? I'm my own harshest critic. You might say I'm the Charlie Cameron slapping myself in the hand kind of critic.
Yeah, he's pretty tough on himself, isn't he?
Yeah, but James also mentioned a few things that we've talked about on the show, and he's pretty good fella. So good on you, James. There were a couple other people, and I stupidly forgot to ask their names. So I think I probably got a bit complacent there. So that's a whack to me.
Yep.
So yeah, well, we won.
Yeah, it was a bloody good game.
Yeah, we won pretty well. But look, it always felt like, up until about midway through the last quarter, always felt like the Bulldogs weren't giving up no matter what.
Yeah.
It felt like they still wanted to win and wanted to work hard, but sort of midway through the final quarter at ground level, it just looked like they're big guns, like, your Treloar, Bontempelli, one or two others wanted to keep trying to, chip away, but a lot of their other guys just dropped off.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, as a team, I think that they kind of stayed in it a little bit, and it, I didn't really feel confident until pretty close to the end there, even with the large margin we ended up with, because, past experience has told me that, we can get pretty complacent at the end of games and we can give up some leads, usually not a lead that big. So I was feeling a bit more confident than usual. Like if we were, say 3 or 4 goals up, I wouldn't have felt as confident. But still, there's something in the back of your brain that just goes, no, don't get confident. Like it's not over yet. 10 minutes, we could have a really bad 10 minutes and still slip through our fingers. But credit to the boys, cliche, as they say. They stuck with it.
We love a good cliche here.
That's it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. And anyone who's been to therapy will tell you that one of the first things you get told is that we're scarred by past experiences, and it's true. Like we said it again after the Richmond game. In the past, that would have been a 70-point win, not a 119-point win.
Yeah.
And at 40 or so points up, I was looking at it and I was thinking, we've been in this position against the Bulldogs at this stadium before where we've been 30-odd up. Hipwood's kicked 4 by that stage, and we've ended up losing by 30. I know we're a lot more inexperienced, and Fagan was only sort of fresh in his coaching career. But there's been other games, like Carlton at the start of this year. Yeah, and we've led. Like I'm pretty sure we've led every single game we've played in this year at some point in the game.
I would think most of them. Maybe not the Giants one.
No, we led that at or just before halftime.
Yeah, which one was our worst one? Because a lot of people talk about the Giants one.
Yeah, that was our worst game. The second half of that was the worst football we've played probably in the last few years. But look, let's just say most of our games this year we've led at some point.
Yeah, if not all, but pretty close, I would say.
And we haven't won most of our games, so the fear is there.
Yep.
And the scarring's there. But look, the boys just kept going, and they never gave up. I can't think. Speaking to a couple of other friends, none of us could really think of any junk time goals that we gave up.
No, I don't think so. And in fact, I'll probably touch on it a bit more with ticks and crosses later, but there is something to do with that in my ticks and crosses.
Yep.
And I tried to go back and I couldn't really think of any examples for it. But yeah, I think it was more of the opposite, which was really good to see.
Yeah, and that's right. And we said that again. Bringing up the Richmond game, we said that after that one that the boys put the pedal to the metal and kept going.
Yep.
And look, I started writing down names of guys I thought played pretty well. And like I was like, Lester, Big O, Kenny had a really improved game. Harris was Harris. Like Lohman, Dunkley. Then I've written everyone really. They were all good.
Yeah, there was only a couple of players that I thought were a bit down on their regular performance, but
Chuck was a little bit down in some ways, but his work rate was still there. And I know we said that a couple of times this year, but like I want to give a bit of a thumbs up to Rayner and maybe to the coaches more so, because Rayner looked like he had a clearly defined role and he kept doing the same things all night. I thought he looked a lot more confident and a lot more happier within himself.
He was certainly better than he'd been in a few weeks, in the last few weeks, but he was still pretty quiet compared to what we know he's capable of.
Yeah, but more to the point for me, it looked like, and whether that's Murray Davis giving a clear directive, because look, the whole forward line, remember against Hawthorn I said that it looked dysfunctional without Hipwood because other guys were having to do what he does, and Brandon Ryan wasn't doing what Hipwood does.
Yeah.
Friday night, I felt that the forward line looked to be back to the way it should be.
Yeah.
And everybody had a specific job and you could see what those jobs were. And Rayner was one of those guys. I mean, Logan Morris, I thought, did really well in the limited amount of, possession of the ball that he had, but I don't know what his numbers were. I'm not really fussed because that's not what he's there for. He's not there to rack up big numbers. He's there to learn. And
and especially so early in his career as well. Like he's not going to be a high disposal player, but he doesn't really waste his opportunities when he does get them, which is really exciting for a player in his first year. Yeah,
he's always trying to attack or be positive when he's got the ball. He doesn't look back over his shoulder and or look around. And you don't see his eyes darting around. He always seems to know what he's going to do with the ball as soon as he gets it in his hand.
he is a great decision maker.
Yeah.
And he always knows when it's better to pass it off, and he's not afraid to pass it off, and he's also not afraid to take the shot when it's his chance.
Yeah, and speaking of guys passing it off, like I'm sure David King will come up with some crap story that he inspired this, but Big Joey passed off a couple of goals.
Yep.
That one to Lohman in the third quarter was directly in front of where I was sitting, and we saw Joey take the mark, and we're like, oh, yeah, he's going to nail this. And then he's just handballed it over the top, and a few people were like, oh no, no, it's good. Lohman's banged it through, and he's run up and high-fived a bunch of kids at the front of the cheer squad, which is awesome.
But even if that rolled through, like if Joey stuffed that up, that would be pretty on brand for him. And then he'd feel bad and he'd come and kick 2 goals just to make up for it.
Yeah, and like it's funny, like when we lose, the media seem to just try and find a scapegoat, and it's always going to be the guys who are a little bit different to everybody else. The guys who aren't robots, and unfortunately, he cops it a bit. But like that goal Joe kicked from the pocket as well, from the same end.
Yeah.
Like the whole passage of play, like he just kept going. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He looked like he was out of position about 6 times in 6 seconds, and then nailed the goal, and it sailed through right in front of us. And I reckon my son hit the roof of Marvel Stadium. He jumped that high in excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, geez. So many good things happened right in front of us, which is good. Like that tackle by Bruce.
Oh, yep.
That was probably about 20 meters to my right. And I was just filming a random bit of play at the time, and I managed to catch it.
Awesome.
And yeah, when you listen back to it, you can hear the slap of the tackle. And interestingly, so I put that on TikTok. On our TikTok with a couple of other random videos. There's one of Eric Hipwood taking a mark in the pocket, and I think it had about 2 views, which is weird as hell. But then there's a couple of other videos of just random things where not much is happening, and they're hitting the 1,000 view marks. And but shout
TikTok
out,
is a strange beast.
it is, and they are really interesting people on there. But shout out to all of our TikTok followers. The feedback, commenting on our posts and liking and sharing our posts over the weekend.
Oh, it's been massive.
Yeah, it's been huge. I really love it. And we obviously are a bit too old to be really in the TikTok scene ourselves.
Yeah, it's not for me. A lot of people my age still use it, but it's never been for me. I'm not a huge social media guy, but it's probably last on my list of interested.
Yeah,
to get interested in.
I see a lot of guys at the gym making TikToks of themselves or their mates working out. And I don't know, it's not for me. But there are some really good tutorials and stuff you can get on TikTok though, as you can on YouTube as well. So yeah. So, what did you think of the umpiring?
Well, it's an interesting one. Obviously we got significantly more free kicks than the Bulldogs did.
Yeah,
which is not. It's not usual for us to be favoured by the umpires. I'm not going to go and say that. Oh, the umpires are always unfair to us. They target us and negatively. They don't like us. I don't think that's true.
No.
But at the same time, I don't think the opposite is true. I don't think we're beloved by them and we get more than we should. But I think we got. There was a few that we probably shouldn't have got that we did get. But I think, look, that's just footy. Sometimes it goes your way with umpiring, sometimes it doesn't. And we've had plenty of examples where it didn't go our way, but it went our way on Friday night.
We got away with a couple of things here and there. And I remember saying to the bloke sitting next to me, and it wasn't Don Fay at that stage. You didn't sit next to me till later.
Okay.
More on that. The bloke who was originally sitting next to me, he ended up, because the cheer squad was sort of only half full, which is unusual. He ended up sitting in front of me later in the game, the fellow, but we're sort of talking about it, with the umpires a few times. Oh, geez, we got away with one there, or we're pretty lucky there that they didn't ping that guy for that. The Bulldogs fans, like the Bronx cheers every time they finally got a free kick. I mean, I don't feel sorry for them, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So I've got a mate who's a Swans fan, massive diehard Swans fan. He's only been to one grand final, and that was 2016.
Yep.
And he sent me a text during the game, and all it said was 2016 with a tick. And for those who have been around football for a while will know that the AFL came out after that grand final and said that the umpires got a lot of things wrong and the Swans are basically robbed of a premiership by the Bulldogs being favoured. And so my mate's got his bit of redemption. He sent me, well, actually sent me two. The first one was, I think it was 16-2 free kicks our way at that stage.
Yes.
He said 16-2, and then he sent the next one. It's 2016 with a tick, and I think he's got his redemption arc there.
Yeah, look, I mean, I remember thinking pretty early on that we were heavily being favoured with free kicks, and the numbers did indicate that.
Yeah.
But I just looked it up then. The final count was 16 free kicks to them and 24 to us. So it kind of almost evened out by the end of the game.
Yeah,
got a lot closer.
There were a few square-ups early in the last quarter. There was a few that was like, well, they're there, but they weren't being called earlier, but they are definitely within the rules, and it's free kicks. And you think, well, it's a bit of a square-up. Fair enough, because we did get a hell of a lot of things that they weren't getting earlier.
Yeah.
That's not why we won the game, let's face it. Categorically, we were the better team.
Yeah.
And a few Bulldogs fans did say that to me post-game when we were stuck in cattle class on the train.
Yep.
And big shout out to the Bulldogs fans. Like, we have a love-hate affair with each other. I love to hate them, and the ones I know love to hate me even more.
Yeah.
Especially the ones I'm related to who are fans of that club and have much closer relations of theirs that have played there or one that currently plays there.
I was going to say, yeah.
They love to put red, white, and blue circles on some of my social media posts sometimes, just randomly. But yeah, the Bulldogs fans, we're walking through the causeway from Marvel Stadium to Southern Cross Station. It was pretty packed. I reckon, multiple thousands of people. And one of the buskers started playing Country Roads, and every single person, even the Bulldogs fans, were singing along at the top of their lungs.
Yeah,
So,
there's not many pieces of music that aren't club songs in footy that get people fired up. Like, obviously, you could argue Port Adelaide's Never Tear Us Apart at the beginning of the game. I don't think there's many other examples throughout all the clubs. Obviously, not counting club songs. Can you think of any others?
Well, like Collingwood tried to do Nothing Else Matters, the Metallica song, and that fell flat.
Yeah. We also had our failed Enter Sandman. Was that last year? All of last year before the game, they tried to do Enter Sandman and just didn't catch on.
Yeah, I think so.
I love Metallica, but it just didn't catch on.
Apparently, they've got a different song this year that some people don't know the name of. I don't know. I wouldn't have a clue about modern music. Hands up. For me, music hit its peak in the 90s. So anything post that, I'm very selective. And she's my nana's cousin. So she makes probably my second cousin, I think. Jill, who's a big Lions fan, old Fitzroy fan. One day I promise you I will listen to a Beatles song when I'm at the gym. And she's always asking me when she sees my gym playlist, is always like, where's the Beatles?
Well, you should tell her that anytime Hugh McCluggage sings a song, kicks a goal, that technically the Beatles are playing.
Yeah, I know. I think she's just having a dig directly at me here because I think she thinks I'm older than what I am. And I am old, but I'm not that old. So... the Beatles broke up long before I was born. So
they have an interesting history, don't they? We won't go on a tangent, but there's an interesting history with the Beatles. Sgt. Pepper's, all that sort of stuff, all the tangents they went on. Speaking of tangents, they went on a lot of tangents.
Ironically, Neil and I, while we're waiting for the game against Hawthorn to start, did have a chat about the Beatles.
Yeah.
Neil's a generation before myself, so he does know a lot more about them than what I do.
Yep.
But I do like some of their songs, so I will say that. Anything else about the footy you want to talk about? Because I've kind of dominated the conversation here a bit.
Not really. I mean, like I've got my ticks and crosses. Yeah, that's pretty much all. I guess we could touch on the VFL.
Yeah, go for it. So I'll let you lead on that one.
Yeah, so I watched, as I said earlier, I watched 3/4 of it. Missed the first quarter because was 3 p.m. start game on a Friday, and had to pick my kids up from school, so didn't catch a huge amount of it. But what I did see, I did like. All three of the new guys that we got in from the mid-season draft all had an impact straight away, which was really exciting to see.
Yeah, all reports are that Will McLaughlin had a bit of a blinder, and really big talk about Luke Beacon.
Yeah, he was probably the best of them, and then McLaughlin, and then Craven was a bit raw. He had some good moments, but he was still pretty exciting, but he was least exciting of the three, I would say.
Yeah,
without trying to be too harsh.
I think Craven's going to be. I think we already said that anyway. I think he's going to be more of a work in progress.
Yeah, he's definitely a bit of a rookie. Maybe keep him on the rookie list for a couple of years, kind of guy. But I think that there's definitely something there with the other two straight away. I think that, and obviously it's only been one game, so but the way that they played throughout was really good. Beacon was kind of played in defense, and he stood out straight away as someone that was having an immediate impact, saved several goals, set up a bunch of others. He was really exciting. I mean, you look at the player stats for the game. Well, I probably should say how the game actually went. So, Bulldogs Footscray kicked 95, with that being 14 goals, 11 behinds. And then we kicked 113, 17 goals, 11 behinds. So we won by 3 goals exactly.
Yep.
So it was a pretty good game overall. We took turns being dominant. It wasn't really one team being dominant the whole time. It was kind of a back and forth. But there was a lot of exciting things. Joe Lyons obviously had a really good game again, but I don't know if he comes in anytime soon unless he's particularly taking over from someone specifically, like a Neil or someone.
Yeah, and there's really Neil and Dunkley aren't going anywhere. So
Henry Smith had a really good game. He kicked 3 goals too.
Got a fair few hitouts as well, didn't he?
Yeah, so he didn't do most of the rucking. So the rucking was mainly done by Fort and was it Fort? Fort? Yeah, Fort and Callan Lane were the main rucks, but Henry Smith mainly did. He did kind of the Joe Danaher role, which kind of makes sense. He was mainly a key forward, but he rucked when it was, a ball up somewhere near the forward line or things like that. And he did a pretty good job of both. I mean, he had 5 shots a goal. He kicked 3-2. He only touched the ball 12 times, but he had 4 tackles, 25 hitouts. So he had a pretty good game. I think he was one of our best. There was a few other guys that stood out. Jackson Pryor had a pretty good game. Kyle Dunkley and Dev had pretty good games without being fantastic. But I was mainly watching to see how the 3 new guys would go, and I was pretty happy to see that. I also wanted to see how Sharp would go after being dropped.
Yep.
And he kicked 1 goal, and had 16 times. It was an okay game, but he wasn't really kicking the door down for selection again.
So with Sharp, so firstly, I'm an idiot because when at the Fan Fest, I was sort of tagging along with my son when he was getting his jumper signed and a couple of photos because I wanted to catch up with a couple of the boys for a quick chat.
Yep.
And I said to my son afterwards, who was that blonde guy sitting next to Bruce? And he's like, I don't know, but he pulled me aside and had a quick chat to me and said that he was injured and whatever, and a couple of other things that aren't really important to the listeners. And I was like, okay. And then about, I don't know, the next morning I woke up in whatever time and bloody hell, that was Harry Sharp. Yeah, so I
forgot who he was. That's
he's had a haircut, so that's all I can put it down to. But yeah, so anyway, down to that. So it sounds like he's carrying some sort of an injury, or he received an injury during the game.
He played. I don't know if he was subbed off at any stage, but I think he played a good amount of the game.
Yeah.
So maybe it happened late, but he definitely didn't injure it early, I don't think.
Yeah,
he had 16 touches, 1 goal, one. He had a pretty decent game, 2 tackles, but not, fantastic.
Yeah.
I was keeping an eye out to see if Carter Michael had come back. He'd been listed as test for about a week or two on the injury list, and hadn't indicated whether he was actually going to play VFL again or not. But he wasn't on the list, so he didn't end up getting the call up for VFL at the last minute. So that's one to look at. That was pretty much it. But I'm pretty excited with the young guys that we have. I did say to Deb last week when we were speaking that I wish there was more academy guys coming through to show what they've got. Potential. There could be another potential Bruce Revel down the line or another Kitty Coleman or something like that. But there's not a huge amount of them. There's some, but a lot of the list spots in the VFL are taken up by players' brothers, which some of them are doing pretty well, but I think some of them could probably make way for some of the academy boys. Something to keep an eye on as the year goes on. And obviously, we're expecting Levi Ashcroft and potentially Sam Marshall to come up and play some VFL games for us in the latter half of the season.
Yeah,
that'd be exciting.
I did hear, actually, I think it was on the Raw Deal that, and you and I spoke about this the other week, and I'm pretty sure I said, usually when they get the guys up, it's in the second half of the year.
Yeah.
And then Dom said on the Raw Deal that he'd heard that Levi was going to play a game sometime in the next month or so.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, I haven't really been watching the under-18s comp as much. The NAB, whatever it's called, the NAB League or whatever they call it.
I think it's the Coates Talent League or something.
That's the one. Yeah, they always change the name depending on who's sponsoring it. So I haven't really seen a good amount of him play. I've seen some highlights and things like that, and I've seen Cal Toomey talk about him a little bit, but I'd love to get a longer look at him. So if he does come up and play some VFL games, that'd be really exciting.
Yeah, it's good to see how these guys go playing against men rather than playing against teenagers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Obviously they're not entirely ready, but it gives you an indication of how they are going to cope going forward.
Yeah,
gives you sort of a base understanding. Brendan Ryan kicked a couple of goals too, didn't he?
Yeah, he kicked a few. He kicked 3 goals too. So he was equal first goal kicker. He kicked the same amount as Henry Smith and Jared Lyons.
Yeah.
There was also Tristan Meakin kicked too. And I think he's one of the academy guys. There's not really much been talked about with him. No, but he seems to be doing not too bad.
He's played a couple of games. Now, I don't know how true this is, but apparently Fagan mentioned him in a press conference or in an interview or something recently. So if that's...
Sure that wasn't Beacon, the guy we picked up in the mid-season draft?
No, it wasn't. No,
I got confused with both of them because I was like,
it was in relation. It was before the draft, and it was in relation to something from a VFL game, apparently. So, I mean, and that's what I was told, but I don't listen to every press conference. Only when I guess there's sort of something I really need to know. Because generally most of what gets said, the media run with quotes and stuff, so you pick it up there. Look, if that's true, then maybe he's someone that the club's looking at for the future as well.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he sounds like he's probably one of the younger guys. I don't know. There was a couple of guys I was keeping an eye on the Allies game, so we'll put a tab on that because my dad and I have been checking out some of the young up-and-coming guys in the Allies game. So there's a few names I want to touch on, but not right now. I want to see how they go after a few more games first.
Yeah, and just getting back to Will McLaughlin, this is a little bit of a local shout-out. I'm the shout-out king today. So big shout-out to Pivot City Basketball Club, where Will plied his trade prior to getting drafted. It's my 2 youngest kids both played for Pivot City for a long time, and my daughter's a premiership player there. So up the Pivots. They also wear Detroit Piston colours, which, me being a Detroit Pistons man, pleases me no end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. And hello to Will's mum, who I believe is listening lately. So, hi.
Hey. Always good to get a new listener.
How you doing? Yeah, all right. Well, just with the VFL as well, is Lions, I noticed against Box Hill he played a bit more forward. Is he still doing that? Was he still doing that against Footscray, or is he just
He just kind of floats around. He was definitely in the middle for some bits, and he was definitely up forward for some bits. So
Yep.
I think his value going forward is going to definitely be like a pseudo captain of the VFL team, just kind of mentoring the young up and coming guys. I think that's where his best value, because he's got a lot of knowledge and he's very skillful, but he's not as fast as he used to be, and he was never really super fast, but he's definitely not as fast as he used to be, or that he needs to be. So I think him in the VFL, being that kind of captain, mentoring those guys, I think that's probably the best place for him, and I think that's where we're going to get the most value out of him.
Yeah, and I've sort of felt for a couple of years that I can see Lions getting into the coaching space at some point.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and I also wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, and I've been thinking more sort of in the the Colts under 18s, however you refer to it as, that sort of age group.
Yep.
I feel like he's got a lot to give to young footballers.
Yep.
So that's a bit of a watch and act on that. See how that takes place once he does finish playing football. But he's definitely a good bloke to have around our VFL team at the moment as well in that regard.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So anything else that we may have missed that we're not going to bring up in the ticks and crosses and so forth?
I don't think so. I do want to point out as well. So you know how we were potentially looking at drafting. I've just blanked on his name. The guy that we got from, is it Daniel Lloyd we got from the Giants?
Yep.
Yeah, I've noticed that since we were ineligible of drafting him in the mid-season for whatever reason, there was floating around various different reasons why he was eligible. I've noticed that he's dropped out of our VFL games now, which is quite ironic.
Yeah, funny about that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to touch on that because he would have been handy. He was, for the couple of games that he played, he was one of our better players. He set up a lot of good stuff. So yeah, it's interesting that he's not playing them anymore. He's just gone back to coaching now.
Yeah. Oh, what do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we might move on to ticks and crosses.
Yeah. Well, we'll take a little bit of a break.
Okay. Yep.
Before we do that, I'll have a bit of a chat to Deb. You go and have a coffee and whatever, and then
sounds good to me.
We'll come back and we'll do ticks and crosses, player of the week, and any other things we've missed.
Yep.
All right.
See you soon.
All right, listeners. I've just nicked Al off to the naughty corner. Don't ask why, because he doesn't know, and I'm not telling him. He's just been naughty for some reason, and it's good to see someone else go there instead of me all the time. So joining me for a couple of segments is one of your favourite guest co-hosts, is Deb, who was not introduced by Al the other night. So I'm introducing her.
Hey, Smithster. Hey, hello, Smithy.
Here she is.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi, Ash. Hi, everyone. Hi, Al in the naughty corner.
So I would ask how your weekend's been, but I already know what you've been doing for most of it.
Pretty good. Both of my teams won. So the Lions had a win. The Aussie cricket team had a win.
Maybe you should tell the listeners what you told me you've done about 4 or 5 times.
Oh, yeah. I may have watched the Lions play the Bulldogs 4 or 5 times, and fancy that. We still keep winning by 43 points every time. Shock horror.
It's great when, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, in this case, you're clearly not insane because you're doing the same thing over and over again and getting exactly the same result, but it's good. It's worth it.
I don't know how it keeps happening.
I'm someone who finds it hard to go back and watch games straight away that I've watched on TV. Now, if it's a game I've been to and when you're live at the game, you miss a lot of things, but you see a lot of things you don't see on TV. So I will generally go back and rewatch a replay of a game I've been to. If I've watched it on TV, there's got to be a reason why, a specific reason. And generally it's to find a little snippet of Dwayne Russell or so one of the idiot commentators like Brian Taylor or someone, David King, and pick out one of their crappy things. All right. So You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, all we need is to win and I'll rewatch it. I could pretty much almost quote word for word most of the commentary from the Tigers game. That's how many times I've rewatched it.
Yeah. You know what I'm like that with?
What?
There was a Fitzroy and Collingwood game from back in about 1992.
Oh, geez. That's a while ago.
That was a game I went to, and it was a close Titan sort of tussle, as they call it. Yep. And Fitzroy got up by a couple of points right at the end of the game. And I watched it on VHS. I bought it on Name a Game back in the day. Watched it on VHS about 60 times a year. And the 01 Grand Final.
Yep. Yeah, I've watched the 01, actually all three of the grand finals, probably more times than I can count. The most recent one I've probably watched the most was the Tigers semi-final where Joe kicked that goal in the dying minutes. That was just, I was at that game and that was heart-pounding at the game. And then, every time I watch it, it's the same feeling all over again.
Well, if you look over my left shoulder, so if you're looking... And for the listeners, they don't know where my left shoulder is, but you can see a little Guernsey-looking thing that's in the old style.
I can.
That's my grand final box set, my three-peat box set.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, what happens is we get to the end of the first grand final, and the kids are starting to get distracted, and they're always like, "Oh, let's watch the three-peat back to back to back to back to back." All right, cool. We get to the end of the first one, and they're like, geez, it's like. When I go and play the PlayStation or, my friend's texting me, I'll come back, and they never do.
Yep.
So anyway, on the subject of media, as we are talking about football commentators.
Yep.
Let's get into a bit of media watch because that's what you're here for.
Oh, funny games.
I'll let you go first because I'm a gentleman.
And this happens every week with Joe Danaher. The amount of times I've seen Charlie Cameron burnt by Joe Danaher with that sort of kick.
Have a look at this because it's wrong on so many fronts. Takes a great mark. Secondly, he plays on, the siren goes. There could have been pressure coming to the teammate that he actually handballed the ball to.
This was him demanding the ball from Hipwood. You can see him in the goal squares demanding it. So that body language isn't good as a teammate, and that's why he would be a frustrating teammate.
The lie detectors.
So I've got two media watchers, and they're more media whacks than media watchers.
Well, that's what we're here for.
So first things first is asking Fags about Clarko and anything to do with the Hawthorn saga. I was watching the post-game presser, and you could just see him completely shut down when the journalists tried to ask him a question. They asked him a couple of questions about it. It's not the first time, probably won't be the last. Stop. This has already put him through an absolute emotional ringer, and they're like, "Oh, how's the club supported you?" Like, just stop. Leave the poor bloke alone. Ask Clarko about Clarko. Ask Fags about Fags.
Yep.
Stop asking him about it.
Just don't ask him at all because, look, and whether you agree with them or you agree with the Indigenous players or you split it down the middle or you have a completely different opinion, no matter whose side you're on, everybody agrees that it's been harrowing for all involved and it's been gut-wrenching and exhausting. And you can see it in all of them. I've heard Cyril speak about other things and he's not the Cyril that you normally hear. He's not up and about. Clarko's obviously got some more anger management issues than what he normally has. Fagan looks exhausted.
Yep. It's not appropriate. And Fakes walked into that presser so buoyed by a win where we weren't really expected to have a win. Everyone had written us off coming into that game. They'd written our season off. We'd just had such a comprehensive team win. And you have all these things you could ask him about. And that's what you choose. And that's what you choose for a couple of lines of questioning. Not okay. Stop it.
So,
leave him alone.
As an extension to what you just said there, so I was at the gym last night. Channel 9 News was on. I don't normally watch mainstream TV because I don't have an antenna on my roof for a start or a set-top box. So I don't even know how you watch normal TV, but they have it on at the gym,
Foxtel.
right? I don't even have Foxtel. Yeah, so Channel 9 News was on the gym, and I was just sort of looking. They had the sports report on because I knew the North and West Coast game was getting close to the end, and I couldn't be bothered opening up the AFL app on my phone while I was working out because I was using my arms. I was like, all right, well, okay, I'll watch the TV, see what happens. I'll flash the scores up, And they had a report about our game, and for the whole time, all they did was show footage of Luke Beveridge getting the shits. And every question that, because there was what they call it, closed captions or whatever it's called, teletext. Every question that he was asked was something to do with I'm going to bring this up again later, the new holding the ball interpretation and trying to bait him into whinging about the umpires. Now, I've already had a whack, and I'm not a Bevo fan by any stretch. I've already had a whack at the media about the way they talk to Bevo. Literally about 5 or 6 weeks ago, a journalist, probably some dude from MySpace, or is that still around?
No.
I'm only joking, listeners. Yeah, basically sort of said to Bevo, are you going to keep your job or are you going to get sacked?
See, that's not appropriate either.
Yeah, there's just gutter journalism is just rubbish. All right, well, you've got another whack. So
I do, and this is more of a personal one. And I preface this by saying I am an identical twin. So this is something that drives me nuts in my real world. Stop treating the Mackay twins like they are one person. I was watching the start of the Essendon Carlton game, and they're like, oh, here's proof that, Ben and Harry are two separate people. It's not okay. I get that it's all been this hilarious joke that they haven't played on each other for the whole time that they've been in the AFL, but it's not okay to treat twins as if they're one person. They are two separate people. It's not okay to ask them if, oh, well, your sister's got a husband. Is he interested in you or are you interested in him? Not okay. Not okay to say, oh, look, they're the same person. It's not. We are two people. You wouldn't do it to completely different siblings. You wouldn't do it to cousins. You wouldn't do it to best mates. Don't do it to twins just because they happen to look alike.
Do we extend that to parents who dress their twins the same?
I was very lucky. My parents never did that to us. They went out of their way to make sure that we were dressed differently, and I will appreciate that every day for the rest of my life. But yeah, that also drives me nuts. Stop treating them like the one person and stop making them into cutesy little same outfits, because trust me, they'll have the same thing that we've had later in life. We're two people. Stop treating us like we're one. Stop treating Ben and Harry like they're one.
Mark and Steve were classic examples of you can be twins, but doesn't mean you're the same person. They're the complete opposite of each other in every aspect of the word.
Just about, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Other than the fact that they're both good at every sport they've ever played, but they didn't play any sport the same way as each other, and they didn't dress like each other. But I mean, look, the Mackay brothers, it's been a weird conspiracy, and it's just something that has sort of played into the hands of people on social media and people in the actual media because it's been so weird the way it's panned out, and it's been coincidental.
But it's so weird because they do it differently than the King twins. They don't get anywhere near the same sort of jokes about it, but they do get joked about it a lot too. So just because you're a twin doesn't mean you're the same person. Stop.
Yeah, the King twins have even gone with the same sort of facial hair and everything, haven't they? So,
I don't know why they do that, but that's their choice.
I know St Kilda supporters who can't even get the right twin right when they talk about it. They're always like, oh, and Ben King's our best player or whatever. Oh, he plays for Gold Coast, guys.
Yep.
Max plays for you guys.
Yep.
I mean, St Kilda supporters aren't used to seeing much good stuff happening, so their brains are a bit fried. All right, so this is going to bite me on the arse so hard in a couple of weeks, so I shouldn't say that.
Yep.
But I mean, anyway. One flag in 120, 130 years. Yeah.
We're really going after St Kilda this week, aren't we?
And they reckon Fitzroy were bad, but having said that, I have given a pat on the back to Lee Montagno a couple of times recently. A couple of interviews he's done, and when he played for the Saints, I thought he was a bit of a knob. But Geez, he is an absolute ripper. I'd have a beer with him. I'd probably sit down and have a controversial topic here. I'd have a Palmer with him. Sorry, everyone else in Australia.
Palmy.
Nobody says Parmigiana. They say Parmigiana. So
You get roasted alive up here. Don't order a Palmer when you're here in a couple of weeks.
So I've got this tactic is how I do it. I look at how they spell it on the menu, and that's how I order it.
Fair.
Yeah. So my whack's my first one. It's not really a whack, but it's just like what were you thinking situation. Brad Johnson, I love Jono. I've met him before. He's a good bloke. Sorry. That guy on Reddit told me I'm not allowed to pump people up before I whack them anymore. I've just got to whack them. So I've just got to coward punch him with my words, not my fist.
Sorry, Brad, you're not a good guy. There we go. We've unpumped him up.
Yeah, all those times that you said you had good fun at the Gabba because you loved our fans, they were treated you really well. You're probably lying. Not really. So Brad Johnson's. I didn't watch any footy. Full disclosure for the listeners, I didn't watch any footy this round other than our game. I went to it. I had no interest in watching any other teams play. Couldn't care less. We all can't stand most of the commentators and whatever, so it is what it is. But I did watch some footy last weekend, and Gold Coast played Essendon. And Brad Johnson pre-game was talking about Matt Rowell. He's going to be the match winner because he's the clearance king. And then in the same sentence, he commented and said, but he hasn't really been getting many clearances lately, so that's why he'll win it for him.
That doesn't make sense.
Correct. That's why I'm whacking Jono. Mate, I don't know what school you went to in the western suburbs of Melbourne, but it mustn't have been a good one.
Shots fired.
Look, hey, and Brad Johnson, every time he went to the Gabba, he killed us.
Every time.
Yeah.
So very glad you're retired, Jono, but make it make sense.
And he is still one of the best guys, in my opinion, on Fox Footy. And I know that's it's like shooting fish in a barrel because there's not too many. Adam Papali'a over in the West is good, and
excuse me, Jonathan Brown is just the absolute best. No bias here whatsoever.
No, I can't have Jono as a commentator. I love every single thing about him except for his commentary.
I could listen to him all day, every day. He's one of my favorite players.
I could listen to that voice all day long, but Lockie Neal, good player. Charlie Cameron, he's a good player.
Top bloke.
Joe Danaher, he kicks a few goals every now and then. Come on, Jono, fire up, mate. That's Jono Brown, not Jono Johnson, Brad. Now, I did have the Hawthorn Giants game in the car briefly yesterday, pre-game.
Oh, yep.
Pre-game. So someone, and he claimed to be a Brisbane Lions supporter. I didn't recognise the voice, so I don't know who it was. And he was claiming, or he's talking about Dylan Moore, plays for the Hawks. He's saying, look, I reckon he's in the conversation for All-Australian this year. He's had this and that. He's a big chance. And then he goes, and the reason why I say he should be All-Australian is because he kicked 5 goals last week. And that's the big deciding factor for me. And I was thinking, okay, so he's had one good game in your opinion and he should be an All-Australian? Give it a spell, mate. Give us a bit more of a body of work if you're going to pump a bloke up. I never heard of Dylan Moore from about 2022 until now. Because he kicked 5 goals or whatever. That one good game doesn't get you a jacket, mate, unless you're, a big name.
Tell you what then, Eric Hipwood gets a jacket. If 5 goals gets you 6 goals, surely.
I have got some things to say about some of our fans in regards to Eric Hipwood. I'll get to that. So I got another one. So Jordan Lewis, and we spoke about this off air, and I told you to should put a pin in it. Jordan Lewis, you played for the Geelong Falcons. You are from the southwest coast of Victoria.
Yep.
you are not from Melbourne.
Nope.
Well, you probably live there now, but you
Maybe
know
from Melbourne.
that places that are an hour or more away from a city are not part of the city.
Correct.
Gold Coast is not part of Brisbane. Gold Coast is not even that close to Brisbane. And I did a bit of a look at a couple of maps. Yeah, I've got some paper maps out. I reckon Gold Coast is probably further away from Brisbane than what Wollongong is from Sydney, and possibly Geelong from Melbourne.
Especially if you're going to the south end of the Gold Coast where Carrara is.
Yeah, there you go. So to come out and say that the Lions playing at Carrara Stadium, because I don't know what it's bloody called. Is it like People First?
People First.
Yeah, whatever.
I still call it Heritage. Well, actually, I still call it Carrara, but yeah. People's First Stadium, I think.
Still call it Metricon, but because I don't know any better, because I'm a nuffy, as we all know. Mate, you're an idiot. That is not a home game for Brisbane. It is not a home. I mean, maybe
not in any sense of the word.
Maybe Dane Zorko and Joe Danaher live kind of, sort of somewhere near there, but not really. And I think maybe Ryan Lester lives down that way somewhere. But
Joey lives down over the border, so he'd be closer to there than home, but he still has to come here to go there.
But it is not a home game for the Brisbane Lions, mate. Hasn't been a home game for the Brisbane Lions ever. I know it was for the Brisbane Bears.
Yep.
Early days, but I don't even know. No, you probably would have been born. So, mate, learn how geography works, because you have no idea, and you're a knob, and you turned your back on one of my kids once at a VFL game. So up yours, mate.
I'll say the exact same thing I said to you offline. It would be like saying that every Victorian team who is based in Melbourne, so Collingwood, Essendon, well, cool, you can have your home games at Cardinia Park, and that's a home game for you. You don't play at the G, you play at Cardinia, and that's your home game.
Well,
everyone would be up in arms.
That's the thing. So, the Victorian media that support the Melbourne-based teams always whinge that Geelong have an unfair advantage playing at Cardinia Park. But then they claim that there's no landmass between Gold Coast and Brisbane. They're just there. But then they come out and make it sound like Fremantle and Perth are 100 million miles away. Fremantle's a suburb of Perth.
Of Perth, yes, correct.
So, learn geography, people. So my last one is Tony Jones, and this goes back to what I said about Bevo and you said about Fags. Tony Jones had Ned Moyle, I think his name is, the ruckman of the Gold Coast, and Sam Closey. Is it Sam? We're just going to call him Sam, because they've got so many guys called Sam. I think all of them are called Sam except for Mac Andrew and Ned Moyle. And Toot. Don't forget Toot.
Don't say.
So Sam Closey and Ned Moyle were on for Lou's Handball on the Channel 9 Footy Show, and I just watched a 5-minute clip on YouTube because somebody goes to me, Tony Jones tries a handball through the target and he doesn't even hit it. It's pretty funny. So I watched the whole thing stupidly. First question Tony Jones asked Sam Closey is, are you going to stay at the Gold Coast or do you want to get traded?
What?
Dickhead. What do you think Sam Closey's going to say?
Mid-season?
Anytime.
Oh my God.
Anytime. I mean, he probably doesn't want to get traded, but even if he did, he's not going to tell you, is he? So, yeah, they're my, 4 or so media whacks this week.
Why would you open with that? Because that just shuts down the whole rest of the interview.
Yeah, well, it wasn't
that's
really
the first question to me.
It wasn't
I'm
really
not engaging much.
It wasn't really an interview. It was more they were there for the handball comp, and they just have a bit of a small talk beforehand. But yeah, I mean, Tony Jones doesn't normally run the handball comp, and he copped the roasting from Corns and Lordo and what's his name, the guy that's always promoting the betting companies, Nathan Brown.
I was about to say which one, because you've got about 4 or 5 of them there.
So big tick though for the Western Bulldogs. They had Love the Game, Not the Odds on their banner on Friday night.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, their cheer squad got a lot of things wrong, like going home just after 3/4 time.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a bit embarrassing.
But their banner was, the side that we could see from our end of the ground was good. So Our banner had a grammatical error that some of our fans
did
have
it?
pointed out. Yeah, apparently they need to learn how to use an apostrophe, and I didn't even notice it. And I have a bachelor's degree in communication, and I did not notice the incorrect use of an apostrophe.
No, I missed it. Because, heaven forbid they show us those sorts of things on the TV. So
Well, there's a video on our TikTok of the players running through the banner, so you can see it on there.
I'll have to go check it out.
Speaking of our TikTok, it's been going absolutely wild this weekend.
As in the Lions or this podcast?
No. Our podcast one, which
Ooh.
is run by my 13-year-old daughter with myself.
I may have to go find that and follow it.
Yeah,
I try to avoid TikTok if I can.
So our mutual friend Stacey found it yesterday afternoon, and she's been fairly active on it. Caught up with Stacey at the Fan Fest, and we had a good chat. Her mum's still trying to get a photo with Motty.
Massive shout out to Stace. She's amazing. So love you, Stace.
Stace's mum Joanne, I tried to bail Motty up for her at the post grand final thing at Brunswick Street last year, and he was a little bit too drunk, and we couldn't get him. Good
Just
on him.
bribe him. Bring some Pepsi Max and be like, hey, come, I'll give you this if you give me a photo.
Yeah, so I want to
get him that way.
I want to give a whack to the footy club. I was going to do it with Al, but I'll do it now. Love that we had the Fan Fest in Victoria, in Melbourne.
Yep.
Love that we had the junior clinic because it's all about the kids. But don't ever put them on at the same time ever again. Like you used to put the junior clinic on at the same time as the sponsors function. And look, to be honest, the sponsors can do it some other time. They're gonna be there no matter what. Kids, you need to look after more.
Yep.
A lot of kids missed out on either getting the players that they know or like at the clinic, or missing out on getting autographs and photos with them, and then the players got ushered off. We were told they're going to be there until 11 o'clock, and they got ushered off at 10:30.
Oh, that's not good.
To his credit, Jared Berry hung around a little bit longer than he should have, and he got in trouble. He waited till the line in front of him got to no more people.
Oh, Bears, love you.
Yeah, and look, I didn't get to see Big Joey, my boy, but apparently he spent most of the time at the junior clinic and was awesome with everyone's kids, and he's got a whole heap of new fans now. I was going to put some selfies up on our socials that I took of a couple of players because, I'm a big kid. But I need to learn to look at my camera, especially when I'm taking a selfie with my favourite player, Connor McKenna. I was looking in the complete opposite direction to where my camera was.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I do just want to give Joe a big shout out because he's absolutely for the kids every time. The fact that he still has Let It Go as his goal song, originally that was a sort of a big stuff you to the media, but absolutely now is solely for the kids. He's like, I want them to have a song that they're going to recognise and at least enjoy. So huge shout out to Joe because everything he does is eventually about our younger fans.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the weird stats. Is there anything weird or repetitive that you noticed done by commentators, players, fans, yourself, me?
I thought it was hilarious that two of our the losing teams in the first two games both lost having scored 71 points. So that was a little bit of a lull for me.
Oh, look at you! You're down with the social media speak there.
I mean, I'm not that old. I don't. LOL is my time. A lot of things after. Not LOL's my generation. So
I still remember the first time I went into a chat room and someone said "lol" to me, and I asked them what it meant, and they said lots of love, and then they wrote "lol." No, it doesn't.
And also Richmond won with 79 points and the Giants lost with 79 points. So I thought that was a couple of funny little minor score weird stats.
And this pains me to say it, but good on Richmond for, after we annihilated them pretty badly and they had a whole heap more injuries after they, during that game. They've come out and they were pretty competitive for half a game against Geelong, ran out of players, and then they had a win against the Crows away as well. So hopefully that's it for them for the year, though.
Yeah.
they've had their time. Sydney are a team to beat at the moment. They showed
They
that.
really are.
Showed that
Watching
today, didn't
them come back from Geelong, where they didn't score a goal in the first quarter, and then to absolutely blitz them was insane. Didn't watch it. I was watching the Lions play the Bulldogs again. Oops. But yeah.
I didn't know, and a mate of mine posted on his Facebook something about a massive big comeback, and I was like, I better check the scores. And I looked at it and I was like, holy hell.
Yep.
And thank you, Errol Gordon. I made you my captain in AFL Fantasy at the last minute, and I originally made someone my captain and realised that his team had a bye.
Oh, well, that wouldn't have been smart.
So I quickly went in and changed it to Errol Gordon, and he came through with the goods. So for me, the mentions across the media, and I brought this up with you earlier, about the new holding the ball rule. It's not the new holding the ball rule anyway. It's the same rule. It's just, they're actually enforcing it now more often. I do not call me a nerd, whatever you do, because it's true, but I don't want to hear it. I counted 623 times that I've heard it mentioned in the last week.
In 1 week.
Yeah.
You guys can't see me, but my jaw is literally dropped. Like,
yeah, and that's just the times I've heard it. And now I don't consume mainstream AFL media.
Geez, which means it's probably triple that.
Yeah, unless someone tells me I need to see something, and yeah.
And even then, they need to film it and send it to you, or you won't watch it.
Yeah, thank you for sending me the video of the baby race the other week.
That was so good.
After forcefully trying to make me watch TV.
My bad. Won't do it again.
I'm only kidding. Look, I do have a TV, people. I'm not Joe Danaher.
I love that. Oh, I got left behind in the move and I just never got another one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Lost my train of thought.
Holding the ball.
Yeah, 623 times. The amount of times Rory Lobb got booed by his own fans, I counted 13, plus 2 ironical cheers, which probably makes it 15. Like, I mean,
just no matter how much you don't like your own player, you don't boo them. Like, that's just classless.
Takes me back to when James Aish played for us, and the Vic fans used to boo him every single game because, look, everyone knew from the moment he arrived at the club that he was leaving.
Yeah.
But I mean, you gave him a good reason not to stay, and yeah, Rory Lobb, he's going to hit utility status next year at his 4th club, or could be his 5th. I can't remember.
I'm not sure. It'll be a lot. So.
Yeah, long-time listeners of the show will know that we class journeyman as someone who's played at 3 clubs, and anyone more than that becomes a utility, for want of a better word. So I had one other one, and I can't remember what it was now. So this goes back to the media thing, and this is not a whack. Well, it kind of is, and I'll stitch this in the final cut and shot stage, but anyone who had the displeasure of watching Gary Lyon and Nathan Buckley singing the other night on Fox Footy, I am glad that it was you and not me.
I'm never going to have enough soap to wash my brain out of that image.
If anyone's seen that episode of The Simpsons where Homer pours dead oil in his eyes, don't do that. Don't do it, but think about it. But don't do it. That's probably...
Wish I hadn't.
I unfortunately heard it in the background on a packed cattle class train leaving Marvel Stadium on Friday night.
Oh dear.
So I stayed. My kids and I stayed up in Melbourne on Friday night because we didn't want to drive back to Geelong, get home after midnight, then have to be back at Melbourne again by 8:30, 9 o'clock. So we stayed in Essendon, pretty good motel for, last minute thing and whatever, but we caught the public transport.
Yep.
On the way to Marvel Stadium, it was empty. We're probably the only people on the train coming home. I'm pretty sure the whole population of Melbourne got on at Southern Cross Station. And there's a girl sitting next to my son, like, I don't know, sort of a 20-year-old girl or whatever. She's she sit there kind of like she was eavesdropping our conversations. And I was, oh, this is weird. And we get to Ascot Vale, so that's 2 stations away from Essendon. She sort of looked at me, motioned to me that she was going to say something, and then said, "Don't worry, everybody gets off at Essendon, I promise you." And I kid you not, it deserted, the whole train deserted, 7 carriages or whatever it was at Essendon Station. What this has got to do with anything to do with our game, I don't know. But my mate Lex, he'll love hearing this.
Yeah.
He enjoys me waffling on about things that are irrelevant.
Nobody does that, right?
No,
Big waffles.
That's what we do here. All right, so I forgot to ask you to pick a podcast of the week, but I know you only listen to one.
Yeah, I don't listen to many, and the other ones I listen to, I'm probably not going to admit to in public.
Oh, well,
yeah. They're just either very girly or very reality based. So nobody needs to know my reality TV taste.
Yeah, I just silenced you for a second there by mistake. I missed about 2 words. That's all right.
I said they're either very girly or very reality based. Nobody needs to know my reality TV tastes. That's my guilty pleasure outside of footy.
Some of us might say reality TV doesn't have any taste to it.
Exactly. So not going to admit to those, but
so I'm going to use this opportunity for my pot of the week to plug myself. I have a family history podcast YouTube thing that look, at the moment I've only talked about my own family because everybody else is shy, but I'm happy to help other people talk about the history of their families and whatever. But I recently brought out an episode, and the podcast is called Reaching for My Roots. Just look on YouTube. It's the easiest place to find it.
Okay.
It's just basically me talking about interesting stories to do with my family. Like, I don't talk about I was born in 1975 in this place, and my mum and dad were married, and they drove home with no baby seat because it was the 70s. None of that, so don't worry. It's not as boring as what I normally am. There is an episode that I brought out recently talking about 4 of my relatives now. This is nerd territory again, so
no judgment.
I'm a family history nut, and I'm probably on one branch of my family the family historian.
Mm-hmm.
So I got together with a few of the others from a couple of different branches, and one from my ex-wife's side of the family as well. And we nutted out, between a lot of us, we figured out that there's been 32 in total people that we're related to have played in the VFL or the AFL or the AFLW. We currently have 3 relatives in the AFLW. One of them's one of the best players in the comp. And I don't just say that because I'm biased. She actually is. I won't give it away who it is. And we currently have a player playing at a football club that our club may or may not have beaten in very recent times. He did not play on Friday night. And I am not telling you who it is because I will cop it from everyone.
I know who you're talking about.
Well, that could be any one of about 25 guys. So.
A lot of guys. I don't.
You already know. I already told you.
I was about to say that's it tweaked because I thought we were talking about the women for a second. There, I was like, what? No.
So yeah, so I just picked 4 random guys. Like one guy who was a bit of a legend that won in a suburban Melbourne football club back in the World War I era. A couple that played for Footscray in the Teddy Whitten era, and one who only got to play the one game but had his head slammed into a locker by Ron Barassi back in 1971. So there's about a 40 something.
Oh, that's a story.
Yes, it is a story. So there's about and then amongst it, one of them's a Gardner medalist. That's a VFL Reserves, best and fairest, like the VFL Reserves Brownlow.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting. A lot of research went into that episode, and I did get some help from a couple of other football clubs with making sure I had the correct information. So
cool.
Reaching for My Roots, have a look for that. If you don't listen to anything else, listen to that episode. I quite enjoyed it. I don't know what's going on. Something's happening on my screen, and I keep having to close things down. But yeah. So
my question to you following that.
Yep.
Who's your favourite relative that you've discovered in your past?
So I will say we've also had, and I'm not going to name names because people just think I'm bragging, but we have had some Test cricketers in the family as well.
Very cool.
On both sides. But so my favourite relative and of all time.
Yep.
I mean, I could just say my dad, but you know.
No, I meant like that you've discovered through doing
but
this.
So I have a 2 times great grandfather who, at the age of 28, turned up on a ship from England to Melbourne.
Mm.
We know pretty categorically he wasn't English. He said he was, but he wasn't because he had a Danish or Swedish surname and spoke with a very Scandinavian sounding accent and spoke 5 European languages fluently.
Wow.
He just turned up out of nowhere. No records exist of him previous to that. Yet once he arrived in Australia, now he lived in Fitzroy. He moved to Fitzroy the year that the Fitzroy Football Club was discovered. Had associations with the football club, and he's the reason why my dad's side of the family and almost all categorically Fitzroy supporters.
That's cool.
So down to my kids who I think are the 5th or 6th generation. Once he arrived in Australia, everything he did, and he went to New Zealand for a period as well, had some kids down there or whatever. Everything he did in Australia and New Zealand is meticulously documented to an absolute letter.
Okay.
Everything he did before he got on that ship to Australia does not exist. Now, other members of my family who are really good historians have been searching for evidence of who he was or where he came from for 50 plus years. I've been searching since 1993 or 4. So,
oh, wow.
19, 20-year-old, thereabouts 18, 19-year-old. A lot of us have done DNA tests with Ancestry and 23andMe and My Heritage and so forth. Not one cigar.
Wow.
We don't even really have that many living people coming up that match on his branch. And now, out of that, in my Reaching for My Roots episode where I talk about some of the relatives that played football in the VFL, 2 of the 4 are actually his descendants.
Oh.
So, there's a link to him through, league football. But, so very, very, very interesting. I don't know if we'll ever find the true answer. But
that is fascinating.
He definitely wasn't English. We know that. And the ethnicity reports on the DNA also says that he definitely has links to continental Europe, so Central Europe, like Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Scandinavia. So, but we just don't know who he was or who his ancestors were.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we do have a photo of him.
Yeah.
Taken in about 1900, and he and I have the same eyes, which is kind of creepy. The same lopsided boxer's eyes. So that's that. But anyway, I do go on a bit sometimes. I know I've been told. So I believe you've got a movie you want to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I did ask if I could pick anything, and you said yes. So if you don't like, it's your fault.
Doesn't bother me. It's not for me. It's for the listeners.
So my movie of the week is Top Gun Maverick, which
I love it.
I know. One of my, I guess, all-time favorites, which is really weird because I didn't watch Top Gun for the first time until like a year ago, when Top Gun Maverick came back out in cinemas. And then they've just done a little mini re-release, which is why it's on the sort of my mind at the moment. But Tom Cruise, Maverick, basically comes back to teach at Top Gun to teach Goose's son, who he's had a massive falling out with.
And Goose's son is
Bradley Bradshaw, but also Miles Teller. So
yeah, but he's what's his call sign?
Brewster.
Brewster, that's the one.
Yep. So, and it's basically they've got to do an impossible mission, and it's all about the training and it's good if anyone who's seen Top Gun but hasn't seen Top Gun Maverick, there's another lovely topless sports scene for gratuitous enjoyment of female fans.
So gross.
But yeah, so it's a really, really good movie, and as I said, that's my movie of the week, probably my movie of the month or year if we're being honest. But said I could pick any, so picked that one.
So the original Top Gun has always been one of my favourite movies, and I'm not a Tom Cruise fan by any stretch.
Neither. The main reason why I didn't watch Top Gun for so long was because I didn't like Tom Cruise. But now I regret making that decision years and years and years ago.
I may or may not have had connections to the Air Force in various parts of Australia during the 80s as I was growing up. I don't need to explain any more than that. So Top Gun was a movie that I had to watch.
Yep.
Because I had a lot of my childhood having fighter jets flying over my head and flying down low next to us while we were driving down the highway and whatnot else. And as unrealistic as that original movie is, a lot of it actually is realistic. That the stuff you think is not real is real. A lot of the shenanigans that the pilots and that get up to, a lot of that stuff is real. So I love Top Gun. I mean, you know, I was 11 years old when that movie came out, showing my age here. The soundtrack, soundtrack back then was awesome. So I waited a very long time for Maverick to come out. And I took... Sorry?
Sorry, no, you go.
I took one of my sons to see it at the... what do they call it now? Titan Lux or something they call it. It used to be Gold Class or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
You got the big lush seats with the recliners and the tables, and they bring you like, you order a packet of chips and it comes on a plate. And
fancy.
Yeah, whatever. But we take our own stuff because, we like what we like. And we watched it and was, completely blown away. And as soon as it became available to purchase, I bought it.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. And look, there was some stuff in it that was a bit wishy-washy, but I thought it was a bit weird that they went into a mystery country.
Well, because we all know who it was, so...
Well,
say that online. I don't want to get any hate.
Yeah, you don't want to be Team America well policed, do you?
No, but what I found cool about that one was a lot of the stunts filmed in the planes were actually filmed. It wasn't CGI.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise was very much like, no, we're going to do this properly. All of the actors who played the pilots went to significant amounts of flight school training and all the bits and bobs, and a lot of them have gone on to get their aviation license, which I found fascinating that it wasn't just all make-believe.
Yeah.
And apparently there's talk that a third one's being greenlit, so that's kind of exciting.
The guy who plays Rooster's rival, I forget...
Hangman. Jake Sorensen, that's Glenn Powell.
So he was in another aviation war movie called Devotion. It came out around about the same time.
Yes.
That's not my movie of the week, but that was a really awesome movie. And,
based on a true story.
Yeah, it's one of the very rare movies about the Korean War as well.
It was incredible.
Awarded Australia had a big involvement in, especially from the Air Force point of view as well, that we never got taught in school. Australians don't really know much about that. But that movie, it also breaks down a lot of racial stereotypes as well. And, it's one for people who like a sad but also happy ending at the same time. But definitely agree. Top Gun Maverick, though, great movie. Lots of good action. Now, my movie of the week is an Aussie movie.
Okay.
It's been around for about 20 or so years now. It's The Postcard Bandit. So it's about bank robber and prison escapee Brendan Abbott. I think it's Brendan Abbott, starring Tom Long. It's one of those iconic Aussie movies. It's kind of like a Two Hands or a Chopper, or sort of came out in that same era of those Aussie sort of movies. Predates all the underbelly stuff. Done really well. Tom Long is amazing. The late Tom Long. He recently passed in the last couple of years. And my mate Tom built a house for him. Tom built a house for Tom. Um, oh, look, I just love like him he's such an Aussie actor and did really well. Just the movie was really sort of pretty close to what historical documentation says about the true story of Brendan Abbott. Tom Long looked a bit like him in some ways. Really good movie, and there's a pretty iconic scene with James Rain. That is a scene that really actually happened. So James Rain went on the actual movie to recreate the scene.
Oh wow!
When he meets up unexpectedly with Brendan Abbott in a bar.
Okay.
I won't give too much away because you'll have to go and watch it now.
I am going to put it on my list of must watch. So
now, if you can't find it anywhere on streaming or anything like that, where you've got to pay for it, it is on YouTube.
Okay. Love a good movie on YouTube.
Yeah, I love watching a lot of B-grade war movies on YouTube that you wouldn't pay money for.
Yep.
And enjoying them. Like, I make myself enjoy them. And yeah, like I'm talking even like some of those really cheesy 1960s, How America Won the War type movies.
There's a huge amount of them, which luckily I have access to on Foxtel for most of them. So World War I and II documentary movies are my real guilty pleasure. So
yep. So I got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Being a listener of the show, as you are,
yes,
because I know you are, because you give me a lot of good feedback. Who's on ticks and who's on crosses this week? Because Al just sent me a message asking.
Oh God, I have no idea. I didn't listen to your Hawthorne one because I was too sad. That's really terrible of me.
We weren't that scathing, to be honest.
No, you weren't, but I was too sad. Like, it's on my to catch up and listen to, but I was too sad, and it took until us winning against the Bulldogs for me to be not too sad to listen to it. That's kind of my MO though. Like, I sort of tune out of football when on weeks we lose, so it makes it difficult. But don't know.
I'll listen back and figure it out. This is stimulating listening for the folks at home at the moment. All right, well, we got one more thing to get into.
Yep.
And this week you're doing the top 5 with me, and we're doing it a little bit differently. I'm not going to make you guess mine, and I'm not going to guess yours. We may be changing the top 5s up a little bit for the listeners too. We may be getting you guys involved.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah. So I'll let you go first with your top 5. So just let us know what it is and then count down from 5 to 1, I guess.
So my top 5, I was really, really inappropriate and did more of a ticks than a top 5. And so my top 5s are things from the Bulldogs game that really did make it that next level. So things that sort of brought about that bit of play that we saw that was the Lions of last year that we haven't really seen this year. And I know you guys will probably cover this in your noughts and crosses, but I'm not quite as much of a Fitzroy Nuffy as you are for the history side of things. I love them, but a lot of that, I was T-minus tiny when they merged with the Bears. So
I was 21 when the merger happened. Showing my age.
I was still single digits.
There you go.
So number 5, is Lachie Neale's effective disposals. So he had 38 disposals for the game, 32 of which were effective disposals. So that's at 84% effective disposals. Now, we put a lot of prominence on the number of disposals that players have. But what's really frustrating is when guys like, don't hate me, Nick Dacos turns around and has 38 disposals but only at 60% efficiency. Well, realistically, that's only 22 disposals for a game that have actually...
By the way, you just got a $5 fine.
Oh, why?
We're not allowed to say the D word on this show.
Oh, okay. I'll pay it. That's fine.
Don't worry. I'm up to about 80. I'm up to about $80 at the moment.
Oh, cool.
And Al dropped one last episode with me too.
But Lachie is a dual Brownlow medalist and does not get spoken enough about how much he is actually in that elite tier of sportsman. The commentators made a comment on the weekend about how, oh, well, Bont's, this elite player and Cripps is this elite player. Oh, maybe Lachie Neale could be mentioned in the same breath. And I'm like, well, out of the three of them, Lachie's the only dual Brownlow medalist. So he came second in a third Brownlow medalist, and I think he was fourth or third in a fourth one. So he's been consistently up there.
One of those blokes hasn't won one at all.
Exactly. So the fact that his effective disposals were at such a high percentage and still seems to not get talked about in those same breaths, that was my number 5. So I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to the fact that you can have a high disposal count, but it only really counts if you're effectively disposing of them and actually impacting the contest.
Yeah, most midfielders sort of operate in the 60s because you're in heavier traffic and that sort of thing. So to get anything above, say, 65 is pretty impressive if you're an inside mid.
Yep. So 84% Lachie. So there's mine for him. Bruce, which I love cheering on at games, had a game high pressure acts of 25. So for a kid that's in his 5th game.
Yeah, about that.
Single digit games, has really only come in to help cover some of the injuries that we've had. To have a game high pressure act when that means he's topped Jared Berry, who's done an exceptional job, Josh Dunkley, who that's his bread and butter, any of the Bulldogs players, to have beaten everyone on both sides, I think is huge chops to him and something that won't get spoken about probably by many, if not anyone else. So I thought he deserved a shout out.
And that big tackle to happen almost directly sort of just to my right. I was just filming some random play with my phone and I caught that at the end of my video. I was like, well, that's going up on the Facebook.
That was just sheer luck in the best sort of way.
But geez, he hit him hard. Like we heard the whack from where we were.
Yeah. You could hear it in the video too. That was impressive. So I thought he deserved a shout out for that. So that's my number 4. Number 3 was Bez's shutdown on Bont. So if you listen to the commentary, you would have thought Bont had 35 touches, 15 clearances. I know he scored 3 goals, but that's because he went forward to be a forward for part of it. But he had no clearances to halftime and 2 clearances for the match. And that is a direct result of Jared Berry, who has had some really good games for us in the past doing that sort of role on Clayton Oliver, for example. So really good to see him come to his own on that. And hopefully that's something that we continue to develop with him. And when he re-signs at the end of this year, because he's going to re-sign.
I reckon he's already signed it, but well, I didn't say that.
So when he extends his contract, we've really found a role for him in something that not a lot of clubs have. So, and he's actually effective at it. So huge shout out to Bez.
I just want to point out something. So I got about 3, maybe 5 messages from Al during the night asking me who Jordan Berry is.
Oh.
And I got to take the P155 out of you here. No, he's not Jared's younger brother who just finished school. Gary Lyon just has no idea what Jared Berry's name is.
Oh, none of them do. I mean, it's not like he hasn't played for us for freaking 7 years or something, is it? It frustrates me.
Yeah.
I can understand when they're young and they're new players, but when they've been around for a long time, come on, guys, be better.
Yeah, I was about to say that. That's my thing.
Sorry, took it out of you.
That's all right.
Number 2, and I know this isn't the game, but because he's my favourite player, I'm going to make it. So Hugh re-signing. I know everyone's going to be calling him the $1 million man now because of what's been reported about his contract, but I think him re-signing took a huge amount of pressure off. There was something about his game this week where he just seemed to play with a freedom that he hasn't played with in the last couple of weeks. So huge shout out to him, and that run off the back that ended up in the hippie goal where he took it, kicked it to, I think it was Kai. Kai didn't quite get it. He went and then got his own ball and then kicked it again to Logan Morris, who then kicked it to Hibby for the goal. That's one of the cleanest bit of footy that I've seen him play in a while. Really nice for it not to be turned over. So shout out to you.
Yeah, and look, I said it on my my little solo thing last week, and I've said it to about 50 people over the course of the weekend. Being on almost $1 million a year for a midfielder is not actually big dollars.
No.
Everybody's gotten a pay rise twice recently since the COVID
And they'll get
stuff.
it again soon.
And they're about to get another massive big pay rise because the TV rights are going to go through the roof. So all you numpties, and it's not just people in the media, it's just people in general going, oh, he's not worth $1 million. Well, he's probably not. But, I mean, no footballer probably is. But the fact is that is $850 to $900 is going to be almost the average salary in 2 years' time for everybody because the game is generating that much revenue, and that's why they're getting a pay rise.
Yep.
So,
and they're the content. They're what we consume. So it's only fair they get paid commensurately with what the game's earning.
Yeah, well, that's right. So just have a think about it, and don't believe anything the media says about what guys are getting paid because Max Gawn told a famous story about how his wife read the Herald Sun and rang him up when he was getting changed in the locker room and abused the crap out of him because she wanted to know where the other $300,000 a year was going.
I shouldn't laugh at that. That's terrible.
Yeah, because she saw how much money was going in their bank account, and it wasn't it was $300,000 a year less than what the Herald Sun reckoned he was getting. So yeah. All right. So you got one more for me?
Of course, and 3 guesses as to what my number 1 is, because again, I am a one-woman crusade on this. Hippie's 6 goals. I called that he would get a bag. I said I'd settle for 3, but I wanted him to get a bag, and he got 6. So I'm ridiculously happy about that. The confidence that will build hopefully going forward, and hopefully that he continues to build on this, and he'll get his All-Australian jacket because apparently 5 goals is the bar these days. But
well, I heard on Triple M yesterday, yeah.
But genuinely, to see him come back in, it wasn't just the 6 goals. He got 20 disposals for the game. He had 7 inside 50s.
Contested marks.
It was, game high contested marks for what he did and what he brought again to our side, not just in the forward 50, but in that sort of between the 2 arcs. I hope this genuinely, and I shouldn't say this because I don't want to annoy anyone, but I'm going to say it. I hope this genuinely shuts up the people that have been doubting him, because what he brings to our side isn't just what is shown on the scoreboard. And we missed him in the Hawthorn, and it was nice for Fags to give that shout out and say that we missed him in the Hawthorn game. But he doesn't get nearly enough credit for what he does, and he gets a lot of online hate, and he doesn't deserve it. So,
yeah. So this is something that Al and I will have talked about as well. So he played a different role to what he usually does, but it's like him and Joe actually swapped roles. Joe sort of did the up the ground stuff a lot more.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Did the extra work. But what I said after the Hawthorn game was that without Eric in the forward line and doing his extra work up the ground, Lohman and Morris and Rayner and other guys are having to do that work for him, and it's uncharacteristic for them, and it caused our forward line to become dysfunctional, especially with Brandon and Ryan not doing that as well. Whereas as soon as Hipwood comes back in the team, love him or hate him, everyone has to admit that the forward line looked less dysfunctional and more settled, and everybody was doing the role that they usually do. Rayner looked I have to say, Rayner looked a lot less confused on Friday night. He looked like he'd been given a job and told, this is what you have to do for the whole game. Go and do it, rather than, we don't know if you're this, we don't know if you're that, we're not sure what your position is. So part of your number 1 there, I'm giving also a bit of a hats off to probably Murray Davis.
I would agree with that.
And to you for your prediction. So I predicted that the Dogs would get a couple on us early and then we'd control the rest of the game. So I finally got one right for the first time this year. And
Yay.
If there's any Eagles supporters listening, and I know there's one or two people from over in the West who are Eagles supporters that give me feedback.
Yeah.
Old schoolmates of mine from back in the day, back in the 1980s. It's my fault that the Eagles lost last night. I have tipped North Melbourne every game this year because I figured they're due for one sooner or later. And they kept losing. Now, I did not tip them this week for the first time this year, and they got up and won. So, Eagles fans.
Ouch. Sorry.
Feel free to flip the bird to me because it's my fault.
Oh.
Don't blame that umpire for that thing with Elliot Yeo that everyone's talking about that I haven't seen because I haven't watched any footy this weekend.
Let's not mention some of the umpiring calls this week, and because they have decided multiple games.
Blame me. So apparently on the Channel 9 footy show, I haven't watched the YouTube link that was sent to me because they upload snippets on YouTube, and I haven't watched it yet, but apparently there's one where they highlight some pretty glaring umpiring decisions, and there was one where Mac Andrew was pinged for something that was just absolute garbage. And
it cost them the game, cost the Suns the game, and the AFL came out today and admitted that it was the wrong call.
Yeah, okay. So they apparently said that across a couple of media outlets, they apparently said that they thought the AFL would tick that one off. So good that they've come out and said it was wrong. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to get into my top five.
Cool. Sorry for co-opting that into a segment. It really wasn't meant to be, but I don't care.
That's all right. You know
sorry,
what?
Not sorry.
It's your top five, and you get to pick what you want to do. I mean, I asked someone what should I do this week, and they said, "Oh, why don't you just do players with colours in their name?" And I was like, "Well, everybody knows Darryl White, Simon Black, Jonathan Brown, Jack Redden, and Josh Green." So that's not going to be a very hard one. Nothing cryptic about that. But then I thought we've had some guys with some pretty good moustaches over the years, and Movember's just around the corner somewhat.
A couple of them are growing them at the moment. Have you noticed?
Yeah. And then I was reminded, so my daughter got to hold up one of those big Charlie Cameron head cutouts in the cheer squad on Friday night.
Yeah.
And his moustache was majestically detailed on that cutout. It looked very, very, very sexy.
Yep.
So I thought, well, I'm sure I could come up with 5 guys who played for Fitzroy, Bears or Lions who had moustaches, and I could have come up with a hell of a lot more because Fitzroy was around in the days when everyone had moustaches. So I've come up with my 5, and I've got one current player.
Okay.
An honourable mention to my good mate Alan Christensen, Bundy. Local boy from down the road. Love the Christensen family.
Yeah.
Because he had a pretty cool mustache at one stage.
Yes.
But he doesn't make the list. So at number 5, I've got a bloke who he was one of my cousin's favourite players back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
And people sort of the generation before me had this bloke. He was a bit of the sex symbol back in the day. He had the sort of, I don't know, a little bit of extra hair on top and, the old 70s style. And he had the big mo. And I've also left out another current player in Joe Danaher because I've got Joe up my sleeve for something else in a week or two.
Oh, fun.
But so I've gone with the man who wore, I'm pretty sure he wore number 7, I think, for Fitzroy, Warwick Irwin. And he also went and played elsewhere to a club we don't mention the name of.
Oh.
And I reckon probably around about 89, 90, Fitzroy and this other club played a like a slowdown match with all the old blokes raising money for charity. And this bloke ran out with a jumper with half Fitzroy and half the other mob. So I'm going.
Who was he playing for?
He did a switcheroo at halftime. I think he went with whoever was winning at the time. But yeah, I will. For those who are watching on YouTube, I'll stitch in like footy cards or photos or something of these blokes so you can see their beautiful moustaches. Number 4, and this bloke probably had the best moustache of all time for our footy club, but I was going to put him in our bit, and I was going to do a top 5 redheads, but Al beat me to it, and I had this bloke in my top 5 redheads list. And the bloke called Kevin Taylor played for Fitzroy in the 80s, didn't have a lot of games, played a lot of footy in WA, and that's where I originally knew him from as well. He was an Indigenous footballer with ginger hair and a big ginger mustache. It wasn't handlebars.
That's a choice.
Well, hey, it wasn't a handlebar one like Murph Hughes or anything like that. This one extended out to the sides. It was like, oh yeah, this was big. This was good. It was
okay.
Yeah. So look up Kevin Taylor Fitzroy, or wait till you watch this on YouTube and you'll see. I'll stitch it in. Number 3, bloke everyone's heard of, and bloke everyone's heard me say some wonderful things about so many times, and he's currently not doing well health-wise, and hope all the best to him, and that's Bernie Quinlan.
Yes.
He didn't have a big mustache, but it was gorgeous.
All of our love to Bernie and his family.
Yeah.
So,
lovely man, Bernie, and he's a guy that he coached Fitzroy at a time when he probably shouldn't have been coaching Fitzroy. They, having a favourite son at a club, go there at one of their worst ever seasons. His hands are tied behind his back because he had no money. They were, having to train at different locations every training session because they didn't know if they could pay the rent and that sort of thing.
He didn't feel love with the club.
He got sacked after 19 games at the helm, 2 wins. And it was probably not a fitting end to the career of a bloke who was probably one of the greatest players to ever play the game, let alone play for our football club as well. So Bernie Quinlan, beautiful mustache. Now, of the current players, as I said, I've left out Joe Danaher, and I go with a bloke who I mentioned about 5 minutes ago, Charlie Cameron. I mean, he didn't have it for a couple of weeks, and it just didn't look right.
I think that was because something was going on where it needed to be shaved.
Yeah, because of the dental surgery. He did mention that in an interview.
Wasn't going to say it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Hey, I'm currently waiting to have dental surgery myself, so I blame that for my dodgy accent, but my West Australian friends tell me I've always had it, so...
It's what, his 4th or 5th round of surgery since
the
end of last year. Like, for everyone who's wondering why Charlie hasn't been quite up on the same sort of form that he was in last year, several bouts of surgery will do that to you.
Can vouch for the sort of pain he's been going through. Very similar situation, and the fact that it does interrupt your activities and all that sort of thing. And the number 1 drum roll, just an imaginary drum roll. Hang on. This is for the Brisbane Bears fans in the house.
Oh.
And this bloke coached our club without the mustache, and it just didn't look right. And as a relative of mine, seeing him without the mustache after having seen him with a mustache since he was about 11, true story, was very, very hurtful and shameful to the family. Not really. Roger the Dodger Merritt.
Yes.
The man with the pointiest elbows in football and a great moustache.
And definitely should keep the moustache.
And I know
definitely better suited with one.
I know I've pronounced that word 15 different times in 5 people, but I'm just messing with you. It's like palmy, palmer, tomato, tomato. You know how it is.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's mine. And I wasn't going to make you guess them because you probably would have guessed all of them and maybe look like a fool.
I would have gotten 4 of them. I wouldn't have got the 70s Fitzroy player, your first one.
There you go.
I would have got the others.
There you go. There you go. And all right, well, Al's back out of the naughty corner. He still doesn't know what he did wrong, and I'm not telling him.
I never did growing up either.
Yeah. Well, my parents, or my dad, and then later when he remarried my stepmom, always told me what I did wrong, and it was pretty much everything. So, fair enough. I was a shit of a kid.
Yeah, weren't we all?
Yeah, ADHD does that to you. So, that's it. I've got an excuse, and I'm falling on it. All right. Well, now that we're refreshed, well, you're refreshed and had a nice soy almond cappuccino, no doubt.
Yeah, you know me. I'm a bit of a hipster when it comes to my coffees.
Yeah, washed it down with a deconstructed plant-based burger.
Actually, I'm not a huge coffee fan. I like the smell of coffee. Never been a big coffee drinker myself. I've got an energy drink addiction. That's my bad habit that I need to kick, actually. So yeah, when I went on the break, that's what I was doing. I was digging into my mother cans.
Yeah, since I've gone back onto working during the day, I don't touch the energy drinks. But like I've started using some totally legal, and I want to reassure everybody of that, supplements that I use when I go to the gym.
Yep.
Just because I'm a bit older, and you know my body's not what it was 25 years ago. And yeah, that seems to give me all the extra energy I need, rather than, you know, like you see guys in the gym chugging down a Monster or a V or whatever. And I mean, I don't know how they don't get a stitch, but yeah.
Like I can feel when I'm drinking it how bad it is for my body.
Yeah.
But I mean, I drink a lot more. I drink a lot of water too. I'd probably drink like 2 or 3 liters of water a day. But yeah, I just have an energy drink probably once a day, once every 2 days, something like that.
Well, so I took the kids to one of the, I don't know what you call them, just like one of the food vendors at Marvel on Friday night. And I was like, all right, we'll just grab a soft drink or whatever you want. And
I was going to say, you'd have to take out a second mortgage, wouldn't you?
No, well, you'd be surprised. And I ended up, I got myself a bottle of water. And normally at the footy, I will have a soft drink. I don't drink a lot of it anymore. But I got myself a bottle of water, and I saw the kids sort of umming and ahhing. They ended up choosing a no sugar cola.
Yep.
I'm not contractually obliged to mention the brand name there. Because, you know, we should be supporting the opposition from the PepsiCo because of our mate Motti.
That just reminded me of, have you seen the Cristiano Ronaldo video where he's at a press conference and there's Coke bottles in front of him and he just moves the Coke bottles to the side and gets a bottle of water and he just drink water.
You see, I haven't seen that, but you do. It does not surprise me, and he seems like the sort of guy that would do something like that as well.
Oh, I'm sure it probably was a big controversy behind the scenes with sponsorship and the club and stuff. But yeah, he was just like, "Don't drink this. Just drink water."
But I mean, he's rich enough not to give a rat's toss bag about what anyone else thinks. And
yeah, he has the FU money, as they say.
Yeah, but you know, when they flash to the coaches' boxes a lot, you'll see water bottles or you know, like energy, like, or not, what are they?
The sports drinks like Powerade.
Yeah, the hydration drinks. Yeah, with no labels on them.
Yeah.
or you'll see they turn the bottle around so you can't see what the brand is, but everybody knows because we all go to the shops.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure why someone in a coach's box needs to be drinking a sports drink, but anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think most
they're not really working off that sugar and salt, are they?
Nah, you see them like, you know, eating bags of lollies and drinking Coke and stuff. Oh, should I give myself? Nah, I'm not giving myself a fine for saying that. But yeah, so when you listen back, so I had to give Deb a fine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, she got a $5. She dropped the D word.
Oh. She should know the rules by now if she's an avid listener.
I don't think she was too happy with me. I think I'm going to the naughty corner with her later. Well, not with her, because being sent there by her. Yeah. All right, well, let's just get back into it. You can go first with your ticks because that's the more important stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to hear what you've got for your crosses, but I'll start with my ticks.
It's not very interesting. I'll give you the heads up.
Okay. All right. Well, so starting off, we kind of touched on this before, but scoring red time goals instead of conceding them. Big tick.
Yes.
So obviously that's something that has been a major problem for us for, well, a couple of years, really.
It has.
Is that we will have a pretty good quarter, and then, within the last 5 minutes, 2 minutes of the quarter, we get pretty tired, and, the boys are looking over at the bench waiting to see how long's left, and we'll let 1 or 2 or 3 slip through, and sometimes that can be the game there. So the fact that we squeezed a couple through, and obviously there was that controversial one from Neil, did it count? Was it, it was on the siren, but the whistle hadn't blown. But yeah, it's a controversial one, but look, it was paid. Hipwood kicked another one. So
yeah,
that happened a few times throughout the game. So that was really good to see.
I think it was a Neil one. We felt, and we're at the opposite end of the ground, we felt that he'd already kicked it when the siren went, because he kicked the ball and everyone started to cheer, and then we heard the siren.
I think, watching the broadcast, I think it was either still on his foot or had just left his foot. But the action of the kick was in progress as the siren went, but the whistle hadn't blown. And depending on who you talk to, the interpretation of whether that should have been a goal or not can either come down to the siren's the siren, or it comes down to the siren goes and then you have to wait for the umpire's whistle. Because as we know, I mean, you've coached yourself. You play on. You tell your kids, and players get told growing up, play to the whistle. You always play to the whistle. So yeah, it's I'm gonna claim it. I'm gonna take it, and it's not like that's the goal that decided the game anyway. That sounds better.
Yep. So I'm here.
Yep.
Yep. Had to unplug and plug back in about 7 times, but there you go.
Okay, well that's good. Hopefully you caught me wrapping up my point on that one.
Yeah, and I was just saying that Queenslanders who follow the rugby league would know that they always play to the whistle. They hit a hooter at the end, and they still finish whatever they're doing until the ref blows his whistle. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, same deal with AFL.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a non-issue, but I'm sure unless something much bigger happens throughout the rest of the weekend, it'll probably be the thing that gets talked about in the media during the week. But we'll see how we go.
I didn't even feel like there was any issue at the ground with it, but it's hard to tell because the Bulldogs fans had already pretty much gone home. So,
so I hadn't even noticed.
Yeah, there was plenty of them still there. I'm just joking.
Yeah, I was going to say that was just before half time, wasn't it?
Yeah, their cheer squad did leave a couple of minutes after 3/4 time though.
Oof, that's not good.
Yeah.
So my second tick is Hipwood and Stas having an immediate impact after missing games.
Yeah, I thought Stas. I mean, obviously Hipwood was really, really, really good. He had a game out of the box, but I thought Stas went under the radar a bit with how good he was.
His stats weren't fantastic, but it definitely felt like he had much more of an impact than he had in. Well, I mean, he was one of the slowest starters for the year. It took him a while to get going, so it felt like he probably had one of his better games of the season. And sometimes it takes guys a few games after coming back from an injury or suspension or just time off before they can get back into form. But they immediately, both of them, had a great impact.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know what's going on with your mic, right?
Oh yeah, I know. It's not even that old. So
no. On that. This is going to be a fun one for you to edit.
Oh no, it'll be all right. I've got a bit of spare time still. Yeah, so all right. We'll get on to your next one, I guess.
Yep. So the Jerry Berry lockdown on Bontempelli, I thought that was really good, particularly in the first half.
Was it Jared Berry or was it his unknown brother Jordan?
You might have to ask Deb about that one. I thought he was really good in the first half. I think it kind of, Bontempelli changed and went forward in the second half. Yeah. And he had a pretty good impact on the game from that point of view. But I think Berry's efforts overall were really good. And he's shaping up to have probably a career best season.
Yeah, I reckon he's top 3 in the best and fairest at the moment.
Yeah, I think I think you could argue that. I mean, there were some guys like Lester and Andrews who were probably well up there from early in the season and probably still polling quite well. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And Zorko obviously had a fantastic start, but he's had quite a couple of weeks. But I wouldn't be surprised if Berry's like top 5. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously it being a big year for him, he's on the verge of signing a contract extension, we believe. I don't think he's going anywhere, but
Yeah, I wouldn't be.
he's definitely proving his case.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's already signed, sealed, and delivered, and they're just waiting for their right moment to promote it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the marketing team. They got to pick when to release those to get the most buzz and hype and stuff like that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either if that's already done and dusted. He doesn't seem like a kind of guy who would, kick up a bit of a drama or a stink about anything and try and drag it out and try and hold the club over a barrel. I think he would just kind of want to get it done and dusted, and he seems like a pretty loyal fella as well.
So I got a selfie with you at the fan day, and I'm not showing it to anyone because, yeah, you've seen a couple of the ones I took. I need to learn how to look at my own camera. And anyway, as I was sort of went to walk off, yeah, thanks, Jared, and then I go, see you next year, mate, and he smiled at me. So that's that's what gives me that impression.
Yeah, I have absolutely no fear that he's going to go anywhere else. I just hope that the good form that he's in at the moment continues on, because I've been a critic of him in the past, and I'm pretty honest about how I feel about players, and I've been honest to you about certain guys. Yep. There's no one on the team that I dislike, and there's no one on the team that I don't want on the team. But I feel like if I know a guy's better than what he's showing, then I'm going to call that out. And we're going to touch on a top player later who had a pretty good game, and I've got a couple of things to say about him as well. So we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, I think with Berry, it's a bit like the Rayner situation as well. Just when he's got a lot of people have been saying this. It's not just me making something up, but when he's got a clearly defined role, and it's the role he was drafted to play.
Yeah,
his football just looks out of sight.
Yeah, and look, that could come back to potential issues with the line coaches and things like that, where the team selection is, let's try and squeeze the most amount of talent that we've got on the list into a team, around every round, and of course that's what every team wants to do. But if you've got nothing for them to do and you just want them in there because that they're capable of doing good things, then sometimes they're going to look lost and they're just going to look wander around and be confused, and they're not sure what they're supposed to be doing. And I think Rayner's definitely a case of that. Barry's definitely a case of that. Bailey's definitely a case of that. There's a few guys like that where we know that they've got these really high ceilings of talent, but they just don't show it consistently. But Barry has had a really good year, and he is showing it consistently this year. Yep. And then, so my next one is just whole team effort. I mean, there was a few guys that were down on, their skill execution wasn't great. Guys like Archie probably didn't have a great game. McKenna didn't really have a great game.
I still thought that Archie and McKenna did some good things, though.
Oh, yeah. So what I was going to say is, Archie, McKenna, Charlie, they probably didn't have great statistical games, and they all made a couple of, errors each and things like that. But the effort was there.
Yeah.
For all of them. They all, none of them were sitting back waiting for things to happen. They all tried to get involved. It just didn't quite click for them. And like you said with Charlie, yeah, sure, he didn't really kick that many goals. I think he only kicked one, actually.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Yeah, but look, he got a lot of work done to ensure that other people were kicking goals, and there was a lot of work that he put in. So I'm not going to criticize him, and he's pretty harsh critic of himself. So, but yeah, there's a few guys that weren't playing to their best, but I thought overall the team effort was just there, and it kind of ties back into the whole red time goals and, getting ahead and staying ahead and not just giving up and conceding like we had in the past. But I think overall, just really good one.
Yeah, it felt like it was a total team effort. It looked like everybody had bought into what they were trying to bring to the table.
Yep, exactly. And for my last one, so this is an interesting one. I actually did a little bit of research about this one. So winning after a bye. So it's something that we've all thought that we've had an issue with. Even Lockie Neal, I think it was post-game, he was interviewed by Fox Footy, and he'd said that internally they talked about the fact that they thought we didn't really come out and do well after buys typically, so they wanted to try extra hard today. Oh, it's not today, sorry. On the day for the Bulldogs to get it done. And look, I think we all kind of agreed at the time, but I actually did some research, and we actually don't have as bad of a problem with winning after the bye as I think everyone thinks we did. So I went back to 2017. So obviously Chris Fagan started with us at the end of 2016 season. So his first season as coach was 2017. So that's where I started. So not including on this list, I'm not including round 1 games. Because that's not really after a bye.
No.
I mean, it's after an absence of not playing, but it's not really after a bye. So I'm counting every mid-season bye. I'm counting every finals bye. So that would be, the main season finishing and then finals starting. But also if we won the first week in finals and then we had a bye and then came back for the prelim, I'm counting that as well.
Yep.
And I'm also counting the weird round 2 bye that we had this year as well. And, the mid-season bye.
Well, you have to include that one.
Yeah, of course. So since 2017, after a bye, we've had 7 wins and 6 losses.
There you go.
So it's actually a positive record after a bye. Granted, the most recent win being on the weekend. So prior to that, they would have seen that it was a 50-50. We had a 50% chance of winning one or losing one, which you have a 50% chance of winning and losing every single game. So I really don't think it was that big of a problem as people thought it was. But it's interesting that even the club kind of conceded that they thought it was a problem. So, but the fact that we did get a win after a bye is a big tick for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so I saw a bit of narrative across social media leading up to the game about, we never win after the bye and whatever. And I pointed out to someone, I can't remember who it was, doesn't really matter. We won in our first finals game last year after a bye. And we won in the prelim last year after a week off.
Yep, exactly. And I counted those in those stats as well.
And they're like, that doesn't count. They're not really buys. Well, they are.
Yeah, well, you're going a week whinwithout playing football. That's what a buy is.
Yeah, so, that's good. We're in front anyway. And I guess that's something. That's one less thing for people to whinge about, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, people talked about the whole MCG hoodoo and stuff, but I think they were trying to make the bye our next one. Our next hoodoo to overcome. But I really don't think that there's much there to talk about, really. I just showed you that it's actually in the positive, as opposed to being either neutral or negative. So we technically have won more post-bye games than lost since Fagan has come in.
That's good. Let's hope it keeps up.
All right, do you want to do your crosses?
Yeah, all right. So mine, I kind of cobbled them together. And so my first one is the Dogs fans. Don't boo your own players. Like, come on. Be better than that.
Are you sure they weren't chanting Bruce?
No, they were booing Rory Lobb and 1 or 2 other players. I mean, they weren't saying boo Earns either.
No.
I don't know.
That's a shocking one. I think the only time I can think of where we've kind of booed our own player is, do you remember when all that controversy was happening with Zorko in his personal life?
Yeah.
I do remember a few games after that where our own fans were booing him, and I just thought that was just so atrocious and so off the mark.
Yeah, and that, like many other stories about Zorko, was just completely fabricated not completely fabricated, but
the angle was completely wrong.
Yeah, there was people love a good sexy story, and the truth is sometimes a lot more boring than that.
I mean, the America trip at the end of last year is a perfect example of that. What was said happened and what actually happened were 2 vastly different things. And one of the players that was talked about as being one of the major contributors to the bad thing that happened wasn't even there.
Yeah. So. Am I back here?
Yeah, you're back now.
Yeah, all right. I think I'm having the same problem you had earlier with the mic. Yeah. So no names, no pack drills, no no clues. Someone walked past me on Saturday at the Fan Fest and they said, geez, Fullerton caused a bit of a ruckus earlier this year, didn't he? And they winked and walked off, and I was like, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
And it wasn't that rhinestone shirt or the big hat that he was wearing either. Dogs fans, I mean, come on, be better than that. And Dogs fans on social media, like, just, I know Luke Beveridge isn't everyone's cup of tea. He's definitely not mine. And even particularly considering I don't drink tea, but like, they rip into your coach constantly, even when you win a game. Like, he did win. He was involved in a premiership at your club, got you to another grand final.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan. I don't find any reason for me to like him, but again, be better. So my next cross is Metro trains, the Melbourne train, Metropolitan train. So I don't normally catch them because I live in the country, so to speak. Yep. But we stayed up in Melbourne on Friday night. We stayed in Essendon, caught the train. Credit to the Labor government here in Victoria. They are doing a lot of work to improve the level crossings and that sort of thing on the train lines. But you need to make longer train platforms, guys. Like, some of those platforms have been around since the 1920s. And the population has grown, but the trains haven't, because the platforms are still small. And you can't have longer trains going onto these platforms. And you're squishing in like every carriage after a game of AFL football that's played in the city area of Melbourne. Every game you're getting 70 to 100 more people per carriage than what they're licensed to carry.
Yep.
They're like, come on, government. You know the AFL exists. They bring a lot of money to you. Make the platforms bigger and longer and make the trains longer. You can have longer trains. It's not an issue. Like, they're not, the tracks and everything else are built for it, but just not the platform. So, get people to and from the footy faster and safer.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day that the renovations around the Gabba are finally finished, when they finish the Cross River Rail.
Yeah.
That's going to be really exciting because, even for that, cricket's held there as well. So it's not just an AFL thing. The fact that it took this long to make an easier transport method to the Gabba is kind of crazy. But I think it's due to be finished next year. I could be wrong about that. I'm not too sure. I mean, these things blow out time and money-wise anyway, so who knows? But I'm excited for the day that it's actually done.
I should have asked Dom when he sat next to me at the game on Friday night
about the Olympics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, I forgot about that. So this is probably a bit petty and personal, but I don't know. There was an old lady sitting up the back of the section I was sitting in. And even into the last quarter, she's still going, Eric, you're giving us nothing. Like, come on. He's had probably a career best game.
Was she watching like a cardboard cutout of Eric in the fan squad and she got mistaken?
I don't know if there was one, but having said that, so well done to the cheer squad, Jacinta and the rest of the crew who run the cheer squad. They had the big head cutouts that they were giving out to all the kids in the cheer squad area.
Yep.
To hold up. My daughter got to hold up a big Charlie Cameron one.
Does the club make those, or how does that work?
I did not think to ask. I'm assuming that the club does it, but look, I don't know. I might send Jacinta a message and ask her, because I'm sure she'll give me an answer pretty quickly, and I'll get back to the listeners, because I'd be keen to know that myself, actually.
Maybe we could get her on for an interview and she can tell us about how they run that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like that's also a possibility. I'll have a chat to her next time I see her then. So yeah, anyway, back to every football club's got that one person who just, no matter how much you're winning by, they still hate on someone. So yeah, my next cross, and like I said, they're all pretty boring. Next cross was a bunch of Dogs fans trying to sit in our cheer squad area and thinking they were going to get away with it, even some of them coming in multiple times. Like, buy a membership for your own club. Like, support your football club and buy a membership and go sit in their members' areas, like, with your own people. Like, spend some money on your football club, guys.
Yeah.
And then I've this is how boring I am. I've written on my notes, think of something else. And I thought,
on the fly.
So the fan fest and the junior clinic, and I had a bit of a chat to Deb about that as well, but having them on at the same time just didn't work. Players were sort of stretched between two places. For a big portion of the junior members clinic, a lot of kids had VFL and academy players doing the little coaching section of that. And look, no offense to those guys, the kids don't know who they are. But having said that, kids also just love any adult who's, wearing a football club gear. I've seen him go up to Murray Davis before thinking he was a player. So, a true story that happened.
He's one of those older rookies.
Yeah, mature age, we call them. But yeah, look, just have them at separate times, even if they're not on the same week. Like maybe do one at one time of the year and do another one at another time of the year. The fans and the kids won't mind, and also do more of that stuff in Queensland. I keep hearing.
Yes.
I keep hearing, and Deb and I spoke about it as well. Whether that goes to air or not, that's another story.
There isn't a huge lot that gets organised, and when it does, it's like come down on a Thursday morning at 10 a.m.
Yeah,
on all the kids
day.
are in school, everyone's at work, and then they go, oh well, no one goes to the event, so why do we even bother hosting it? It's like, well, what if you did it on like a Saturday?
Yeah,
during the bye or something. Like I know the boys want their, I'm sure there's an AFLPA clause that, during a bye they get time off or something like that. But make it at a more accessible time for the, for the fans. And they used to, like early days of Fagan, they used to have stuff like that all the time, and it was really good. And then they just stopped doing it, or they do it at really inconvenient times. So I really want them to start doing more stuff like that at a time that's convenient for the average person, which isn't during school or work.
And the other thing with that too, if you're advertising that the players are going to be there till 11, don't start walking around at 10:30 telling them you've got to get on the bus.
Yeah.
When there's, hundreds of people still lining up that haven't had a chance to get a photo or an autograph.
That's pretty poor.
Having said that, we had a great time and we really enjoyed ourselves and caught up with a lot of friends, caught up with some players, got some free Caltex merchandise. I got a drink bottle and a lanyard and a little fridge bag, which I'm using for the gym now, and using the lanyard for my keys.
Merch.
Yeah, cha-ching. Yeah, but look, and it was great, when David Laydon, who's the president of Fitzroy Football Club these days, had the Fitzroy merchandise stand there, and he was having a great time. Kept busy, a lot of fans buying stuff, which is great. And and yeah, it was a really good morning, but stick to the advertised times that you give people, because some people can't get there exactly 9 o'clock. And don't spread the players thin. Just give the kids the opportunity to meet everyone.
Yeah, it's a bit like, like a restaurant advertises that they're open till like 10 or something like that. And then, at a certain time, they just stop allowing you to order things.
Yeah, or you go to an all-you-can-eat restaurant and then they send you home before you've eaten all you can eat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, then it ends up in court.
Yeah. Or The Simpsons, they'll try and kill you with a pastry.
Yeah, we don't want to go to that extreme. All right, well, I agonised a bit over my player of the week because I thought there's two blokes that you could raffle it off.
Yeah, I was going to say there's only two it could be.
And there was a third that I could have given like an honorary one to, but I gave that to Berry last game. So I'll get yours first because I want to see who you go with before I pick one of my two.
One of your two. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am Denard as well because, there was two obvious choices and both of them had massive impacts on the game. You could debate which one was more important at the end of the day, but I think settling on either of them would be totally logical, and I don't think many people would fault you. I landed on Hipwood.
Yep.
Mainly because he kicked 6 goals, but it wasn't really just the goals for me. It was clearly he came out with a bit of a chip on his shoulder, a bit of a point to prove. I think maybe he was a bit frustrated at the fact that he got the suspension and that he didn't get to play.
Yeah, seemed that way.
2, maybe not as much, but maybe there was an element that I doubt that he heard what the fans were saying, but he might have heard something what the media was saying. So he might have been a bit frustrated by that. But I think it was probably mainly being frustrated that he missed the game through suspension. But he definitely came out with a fire in his belly and a point to prove. And I think he proved it and he exceeded it. The other guy you could have argued was Lachie Neale. I think he probably did win it for us in the end. but I went for Hipwood for the reasons that I mentioned.
Yeah, look, I'm going to go with Hipwood for the same reasons. You've talked me into it. 99% of the game, I agonised over it. Hipwood deserves it. And then I'm thinking, well, Neil also deserves it. And, I've said a few times that I don't give Neil the recognition he deserves. I've been probably a bit hard on him.
Yeah.
But, I've got to go with Hippie. We love a big forward kick in a bag, don't we?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, look, we've said before that we don't really necessarily pick our player of the round based on stats. Sometimes it's about the feel.
Yeah.
When we've picked Calamachi in the past, it's about that you can feel the passion and the will of him playing.
It's the vibe.
It's the vibe, as you would say in the castle.
Yeah.
So, and that was it was the vibe for Hipwood. I mean, it was a bit of an obvious when he kicked 6. Like, he obviously clearly had a good game. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, at the end of the year that Lockie Neal gets 3 Brownlow votes for the game.
Yeah,
that wouldn't surprise me at all. And in fact, I think that's probably quite likely. And we wouldn't have won if he didn't have as good of a game as he did, despite how many goals Hipwood kicked. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Hipwood play a game like that before, and I will be really interested to see how the rest of his year goes, because I have been critical on him in the past, but I have to admit that he had a fantastic game, and I'm really keen to see how he goes going forward, because it's never really been an issue of effort. I can always tell that Hipwood's trying, and I can always tell that he is putting in the effort to get the job done every week, but his skill execution has been poor, and that's the thing that's been holding him back. So the fact that his effort was really high and his skills were also really high in the same game, that was excellent, and I really want to see more of that going forward. Hello.
Yep, am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, so
I'm hoping you caught what I said about Hipwood, because I feel like that was a good little stretch that I went on there.
Yeah, I could hear everything. I think it's just my mic. I think I started saying something, and then I realised that I wasn't there. But yeah, no, look, I agree with everything you said there, and I feel as though everybody played better around him as well, which helped him.
Yeah, he definitely lifted other people up.
But also they lifted him as well. It was like I guess a mutual sort of lifting, and there's a lot more cohesion. And on the topic of the Brownlow and people getting the votes and whatever, I did hear on another podcast, they came up with a theory that it's the clearances. It's not necessarily the amount of ball that the guys in the mids are getting. It's more the clearances.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. That's the more impactful stat.
Yeah, they've gone back and they were saying, like, Patrick Cripps, for example, this year, he's only averaging 2 clearances or something like that a game, whereas in his Brownlow year, he was averaging up around the 8 or 9 mark, or maybe even 10.
Yeah.
And they pointed out that Tom Liberatore might be a bit of a bolter as far as Brownlow votes go, because he's leading the league in average clearances per game by, like 1.5 to 2 clearances.
Yeah, potentially, but he also missed probably too many games, I think.
Yeah, but more so, like, not that he's going to win it or he's going to be the most votes from the Bulldogs, because obviously you would think that Treloar and Bontempelli are probably going to be in front of him.
Yeah,
but more of a case that, like Angus Brayshaw a few years back when he finished 3rd and no one expected him to, and then you look back and he's under the pack sort of work and under the nose of the umpire work was quite significant. So that's something to keep an eye on. And sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, I was just tied into that. I think we've talked about players getting 30, 40, 50, sometimes 50 touches in a game, but if they don't have enough clearances and tackles and stuff, then you don't really notice it. You might look at the stats at the end of the game and go, oh, he had it 45 times. When did he have it 45 times? But you might have a guy who's got 25 disposals, but he's got 10 clearances and 6 tackles in that. And then at the end of the game, you go, geez, he had a good game. Like, you don't even look at the stats. You just go, I know he had a good game.
Yeah.
Because those things are much more impactful than just getting a few cheap handballs to get your stats up at the end of the the game like a certain ND from Hollywood wants to. But we won't go there.
Yeah, and they mentioned on this podcast as well in the same conversation that, and I don't like to endorse gambling advertising, but one of them did say that he'd actually gotten on Lockie Neal a week out from the Brownlow because he went and looked at the stats, and his clearance work was what was making him stand out. He was down on overall disposals and goal output as well, but he was higher up in the clearances.
Yep.
So yeah, there's something to look at if anyone is gets their spreadsheets out and plays the Brownlow at home, and I know a few people do. I try and do it, but I get to about round 7 and forget. I'm sure Alicia would do something like that though, because she is a guru and we love her for it. So yeah, all right. Well, I guess that's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this one. I mean, we'll be back later in the week to preview the St Kilda game.
Yeah.
So that'll be good.
Yeah, we'll just have to figure out what we're going to do with that, being the short turnaround between selection and the game. But yeah. So just thanks to all of our listeners and supporters as well. We had a huge spike in listenership and downloads last Friday and Saturday, which is fantastic. And I was a bit nervous.
Massive.
I was a bit nervous getting that selection chat out so late before the game, but yeah, definitely it was something that did. I don't know whether that worked in our favour or however you want to look at it, but really thankful to everybody. And everybody who spoke to me over the course of the weekend said that they're listening. I did thank them wholeheartedly, and I am again.
Yeah. And look, you might, those listening might not think it makes a big difference, but if you want to leave a review or a comment or a like on any of the posts that we put out to advertise the podcast, or even on the, the actual platforms themselves, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, subscribe to the channel, any of that sort of stuff, like it's free. It really does make a massive difference because it puts it into other people's recommended feeds. And then that's how people who aren't aware of the show find the show. So, and also you can, word of mouth. If there's someone that, that's a big Lions fan that's not aware of the show, recommend it to them. It's a bit different to some of the other stuff out there. We go on a bit of a tangent sometimes, and because we've been mates for a long time, and we just like talking to each other and we like talking footy. So if you like that sort of content, then come along for the ride.
That's it. That's why, we like to do a pod of the week every week as well, because we listen to podcasts ourselves, and we like to support the people that we enjoy listening to, and we feel that, you guys will enjoy as well. So, so all right, we'll be back Thursday night, Friday morning. Hopefully we'll get it out on time on Thursday night. Just dependent on the AFL getting the selections out on time and whatnot. And we'll have a preview of our game against the Saints.
Yeah, well, I mean, after a pretty good game, and I don't think there was any injuries or suspensions, so I can't imagine the lineup changing too much.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Yeah, maybe not even a sub, because this is probably the only time I haven't bagged the choice of a sub. I thought Noah Answorth was the logical guy.
Yeah.
I couldn't really think of maybe Bruce, but I think with with Starcevich coming back in, Answorth was the guy. So maybe they might rotate one of the defenders and bring Answorth into the starting lineup. Other than that, I can't see any changes.
No, I can't really either, unless there's an injury that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
Which sometimes bobs up, but hopefully not. But we'll talk about that on Thursday night anyway, regardless.
Yep, that's it. And for those who have given us some good feedback about Deb, we will have her on a lot more over the course of the rest of the year.
Yep.
And we'll keep you posted on that.
Beauty.
All right.
Until next time.
Good stuff. We'll talk on Thursday.
See you, mate.
See you, mate.
Bye.
This episode was produced by Steel Hat Productions. Please follow us and enable notifications to get our latest episodes anywhere podcasts are available. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review.